I call the meeting of the City Council of the City of Pacifica to order for March 9th, 2015. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Keener.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill. Here. Councilmember Nyhart.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree.
Present.
Mayor Irvin.
Present. Salute to the flag will be led by Councilmember Nyhart.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a closed session report?
No reportable action.
Okay, thank you. This brings us to the consent calendar. Persons wishing to address the council on any consent calendar item may do so at this time. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Those wishing to address the council on any item listed on the agenda should submit a speaker card to the city clerk. Get it from the back of the room. Items on the consent calendar will be adopted by one motion unless a council member or person in the audience requests before the vote or the motion to have an item discussed under the consideration portion of the agenda. Time limit on comments is 3 minutes or less. Okay. I don't have any items, so seeing no one, I will bring it back to council.
I have a line on.
Councilmember Nyhart.
Yes, I'm ready to move approval. I just wanted to make one comment, and I'm going to do that before I make the motion. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. I really appreciate the breakdown and the report on the animal control and animal licensing. It was probably the best presentation of those costs that I've seen in a while, so I'm very appreciative. We always talk about how expensive that is, but I just wanted to thank you for that. And I move approval of the consent calendar.
Thank you. I also have a comment from Councilmember O'Neill.
I have a question in regards to
Second.
the animal control
Yeah,
thing.
good.
And
You need a second?
I'll
I
second
need a
it.
second, yeah.
And then I have a question. And for some reason, my agenda's not coming up here. One of the biggest complaints I get all the time is if the animal goes and dies on private property. And I saw in there it's only if the animal bites and scratches and stuff like that. Is Captain Spanheimer coming to answer a question?
He's coming.
Okay,
Question.
He's on his way.
okay.
Yep.
Why can't I?
The simple way is to,
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to sit down. I had a question in regards, one of the complaints, even when I was on the school board, I used to get was dead animals on private property. Now, if an animal just wanders in and dies, it really is not covered at all by this plan, correct?
And you're talking about wild animals, right? Not.
Yeah, not domestic, but wild. Deer, raccoons, possums, whatever.
Yes, that's correct. If a wild animal wanders onto private property and dies, as within prior agreements, the Peninsula Humane Society is not under contract to retrieve it off of private property.
Is there any way, and this is a vanilla contract, I mean, we can't really ask for special cases or anything, right?
I became part of the negotiation team for the contract sort of late on in the ballgame here, but I did bring that question up because I've heard it discussed here frequently. And it was really a non-starter. If something like that were to be brought into this contract, I was told that it would raise the rates rather high to cover workers' compensation costs should those PHS workers suffer injuries by moving large animals off of private property. So therefore, it wasn't going to be part of the contract. So that portion remains as in past contracts. So they will refer residents to removal services who will do that for a fee. However, if wild animals are found on the public right-of-way, then PHS will pick them up.
And then I remember the Council of Cities dinner one month, there was a big concern over a new facility. And the county was going to, like, if I remember correctly, the county was going to build it and then lease it back in all the cities. Did I miss it in the provisions of that? Was that in here?
No, that's actually a separate agreement. I believe that was April 2014 it was agreed upon.
Okay.
And so it's been budgeted for already. I don't know if they've broken ground yet, but it's already been agreed upon and is budgeted for.
Okay, those were my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, and I also like to just comment that it's interesting that every city in the county actually uses this service. Nobody goes out on their own, and they can't do it on their own.
That's correct.
Right, okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And we have a motion and a second, so if everybody's ready to vote. And that passes 5-0. So now I have a special proclamation to give, as this is American Red Cross Month, and I know we have Betty Fleming in the audience, and I'd like if you could come to the podium as I present you with your proclamation. And again, this is such an important and worthy organization that does so much for people who in need, and I'm very grateful to have your representation here. March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our everyday heroes, those who reach out to help their neighbors when they are in need. American Red Cross heroes are on the front lines every day. They volunteer their time, give blood, take life-saving courses, or provide financial donations to help those in need. We would like to remember our heroes here in the city of Pacifica who assist people in need. They work tirelessly to help in time of disaster when someone needs life-saving blood or the comfort of a helping hand. They provide round-the-clock support to members of the military, veterans, and their families, and teach life-saving classes in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. Across the country and around the world, the American Red Cross responded to hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and wildfires. The tragedy at the Boston Marathon and Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. Whereas when an injured servant member ended up in a hospital far from home, the American Red Cross offered comfort. When a hospital patient needed blood, American Red Cross blood donors helped them. When a lifeguard jumped in to save a drowning child or someone stepped up to help a heart attack victim, the American Red Cross was there. In the past year, the 2,000 local volunteers of the American Red Cross Bay Area chapter helped more than 990 families with temporary housing, clothing, food, and emotional support during 433 local disasters. Our local chapter trained more than 1 million people in life-saving CPR, first aid, water safety, and preparedness education. Our local chapter provided emergency communications, counseling, financial assistance, and a caring presence to more than 1,500 local military families. We dedicate the month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Our community depends on the American Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. I, Karen Irvin, Mayor of Pacifica, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of City of Pacifica in California, do hereby proclaim March 2015 as American Red Cross Month. I encourage all Americans to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If I may just thank you very much, and also thank the City of Pacifica. We work with the city on the Pacifica Emergency Preparedness and Safety Committee, as well as having local volunteers coming from here. In the past, you mentioned many of the statistics for the past fiscal year, but in this past week alone, there have been 20 incidents in our region affecting 77 people, and 512 incidents already this year, so we're already more incidents than last year. Unfortunately, that seems to increase all the time. Wow. We certainly do appreciate the support and the recognition from the City of Pacifica and from its residents, and thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have some council members here who I think would like to say a few words. Councilmember Neihart?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, and having been a Red Cross volunteer myself and done mental health and disasters, I appreciate everything that you do. I also, more on a local level though, appreciate the fact that You know, when there's a fire, you guys are there. And I got to witness that my first year on council, up close and personal, and you helped my neighbor immensely, and I just can't thank you enough. And I think people don't realize that because we talk about it so much on a large disaster level that we forget about everything that you do and the organization does day to day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Degree?
I don't know if they mentioned that they also train babysitters, which I always think is a wonderful thing, that, you know, so parents can feel comforted that they can call you up and get the names of local people that babysit, correct? Is that how it
Yes,
goes?
primarily it's so that the students, mostly girls, but there are some boys too, who have certification that they are properly trained in childcare and know what to do in case of an emergency, so that parents can be assured that their children are getting proper care.
Right. that
I
was a-
too think it's a wonderful service.
No, it's really great opportunity. So if you know any young people that want to learn that, that's an excellent. And also, sometimes we talk about the Red Cross like it's those people over there, when we really could be ourselves. And I remember that, well, my mother was Red Cross and my husband is Red Cross, and then I tried to learn CPR, and you had to get that red thing to sign, and I could never do it. So those of you who stayed away from Red Cross training for that reason, you don't have that anymore. There's a much easier way of teaching CPR and first aid, so thank you.
Yeah. And again, you know, just thank you for all that you do, and thanks to all the many volunteers who have given thousands of hours to help people that they don't know, but yet understand the strong need that there is for support. So thank you so much, and I'd like to give you your proclamation.
Thank you. Shall I step up? Coolly.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no public hearing tonight, so now it's time for council communications. The purpose of council communications is for council members to inform each other and the public of items of potential interest to other council members, such as interagency meetings. So do I have anybody who would like to start off with council communications? Councilmember Nyhart?
I just have a couple of things that I wanted to share. One, I think I passed along to the city manager, and if you didn't get it, let me know, but the PowerPoint from the Transportation Authority, it was related to bicycle and pedestrian funding, and it was a very useful PowerPoint just in terms of other funding sources, thinking about how we make our streets more complete and walkable and use it for bicycles. So I wanted to draw your attention to that, and she'll probably forward it to you. I also wanted to share with you a piece of news that may have been disturbing to some, but it was an FBI report that has actually come out about a company by the name of 350 Green. They were involved in a contract with the Association of Bay Area Governments. They did not follow through on that contract, and so we never paid them. So ABAG was not involved in them receiving any money. But it has come out that there has been pretty significant scheme to defraud both Chicago and a number of other governments by the organization. So I wanted you to be aware of that and to not feel particularly concerned. The exec sent out an email, and I forwarded that also to the city manager. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Degree?
Yes, exciting news. The San Francisco Giants will be coming again to Pacifica, and it's right before the next council meeting, so that's March 23rd. And the time will be 5 o'clock. Do I have that right? They'll be here a little bit early. I was told I could let people who are veterans, maybe veterans or disabled who have a hard time standing in line, could come a little earlier, but for the general public, at least it's at 5 o'clock to 6, if I have that time correctly, but the date is, where is it? March 23rd at the Community Center, and I believe you'll be hearing more about it in the Tribune coming up Wednesday. So that was very thoughtful because normally we are, we did in 2010, but our city doesn't have one of the Giants Little League teams, so most cities are skipped for that reason. But we're fortunate and very grateful to have them again. I did attend the Sports Hall of Fame that is every year, and once again, I learned a great deal of history. It's always very, very gratifying to be there. I learned so much history about Pacifica. You think you know it all, and then you find out that there's a whole bunch you still don't know. Attended the Pacifica Collaborative. They meet in the mornings on the first Thursday in the school, the main buildings for the administration building, and that's always an excellent collaborative to learn again about your city and the needs of what's going on around. I also attended the North County Partnership we're writing a grant. You hear periodically over the years, it's been a consistent thing about drugs, the drug issue and the alcohol problems in our city, and we're really trying to address this again and again. So they're writing grants to help, hopefully, to get this grant to be more effective or continually trying to address the use. And one of the biggest things is the use of prescription drugs. So right now, if you have prescription drugs in your purse or in your car or in your medicine cabinet, make sure that they're locked up, because anybody can be visiting you, or your own children could. That seems to be going around, the prescription drugs, and there's a whole way they concoct them and stuff, but that's your child's and our children in our city's brains and bodies at extreme risk and in such an easy way. So you'll be hearing more about that, I do hope. The Economic Development Committee meets as usual on the second Tuesday, so that's tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the Police Department, and the Open Space and Parkland Committee is on the third Wednesday, which meets in PB&R Center there. And did I forget anything? I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council members O'Neill or Keener, do you have anything you want to say? No?
Are you guys there?
Council member O'Neill?
Okay. I attended the CERT graduation, which is the community emergency, where a lot of volunteers are taught how to do first aid and what to do in if there's an earthquake or fire, helping their neighbors and stuff like that. And there was a really good turnout. I mean, there must have been at least 20, 25 people there. That was good. Council of Cities dinner, which actually was kind of cool, because when I was down there, later on we'll be voting on Palmetto, and the street it was on looked somewhat like I've seen pictures or projections of what Palmetto would look like. Councilman Keener and I did a town hall presentation at Pedro Point Improvement Association, and we're scheduled to do, I guess we were so good, they wanted to see us do it twice on the 25th and contact the chamber to get the times. I also attended the League of Cities dinner, and it was about economic development in the Bay Area. And it was really interesting, is a lot of the statistics of what the county and the region is facing in terms of economics. But one thing I did notice is there was very little on the coast side. And one statistic I took that I found, I don't know, kind of surprising, is that the job growth in the Bay Area will not be new jobs. It will be replacement of existing workers as they move out or retire. So those actually be replacement jobs, not necessarily new jobs. And I just thought that was interesting statistics. And second, I'd like to congratulate, I guess I'd call him Captain now, Spanheimer, on his 6 months as Chief of Police, and I hope Mr. Steidel, or Captain Steidel, or Chief Steidel will do just as good. I mean, I think, Mr. Captain Steidel, you have a hard act to follow, because Mr. Spanheimer did two of the elements, water and fire, and you're going to have to deal with earth and wind. So I think congratulations and good luck on the earth and wind, because that could be a lot more than the wind and then the water and fire.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Okay, so I actually attended my first Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. I was newly selected for that CCAG board, and it was a very eventful evening. We heard presentations from a large number of cities in the county for projects that would be, they're applying for, that they'll receive grants through CCAG to benefit pedestrian and bike trails and pathways and make their communities more walkable, and it's very exciting to see some of these projects. They're very innovative and exciting, and it really shows the direction many cities are going. And on the 21st of March, we're going to be taking tours around the county looking at some of these projects. So it's very exciting to see some of these things occurring, and really happy to be part of that and represent Pacifica. I also went to a beautification committee and talked about the many projects that we are, getting started. And one of the great projects that's just been up and starting is a group of Girl Scouts that live in the Marvilla neighborhood are beautifying the park there. So it's just really wonderful to see young people as well as all of our citizens get involved in beautifying our areas. It's really, people understand the importance, and everybody's interested in putting in, their efforts, so that's a lot of fun. I also went to the Sports Hall of Fame event, and a wonderful event. I think it just brings so much pride to the community, and so many years of people dedicated to doing the best that they can and representing Pacifica in such a bright light. And I really want to commend Horace Henshaw and the whole organization that puts together that event. It's a great event, and everybody has a wonderful time. And I encourage anybody to go if they get the opportunity to applaud the new inductees every year. Again, I went to the Council of Cities dinner that was held at the Fox Theater in Redwood City, a great event. We get to hear all about what other councils are doing and the issues that they face, and we try to come together and work on issues that can help benefit all of us. And again, I'm going to the Economic Development Committee meeting tomorrow. We're going to be discussing commercial vacancies, some special event planning that we're discussing, and possibly Palmetto, depending on probably what happens this evening. And then I also have a Legislative Committee meeting to attend, as well as interviews on Wednesday for both the Planning Commission and the Beautification Committees. So busy next couple weeks going forward. Okay, and Councilmember Nyhart's reminding me to let everybody know that on March 28th, Daly City Youth Health is having a walkathon to celebrate 25 years of service, and this is a very worthy event. And I strongly encourage anybody interested in supporting the Daly City Youth Health Center to go to this event. And they are also having a dinner, I can't remember the exact date, it's being held in April, to benefit the health center as well. And this is a group that really helps young children and teenagers in life, and it's a wonderful, wonderful organization, and I strongly encourage anybody interested to look into it and attend that walkathon.
They actually provide services to Jefferson Union High School.
Right. Great. Thank you for that reminder as well.
Okay.
Okay. And with that, I think that brings us to oral communications. Here, anyone who would like to speak on items not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to do so. Please fill out a yellow card available in the back of the room. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. At 2 minutes, you will hear a warning, and you will have an additional 1 minute. Please note that council does not have the opportunity or the right to enter into debate or discussion with the speaker. So sometimes it's confusing why we don't respond to what you say, but we're not allowed to actually respond to issues that aren't on the agenda. So with that, I'm going to ask, thank you, I'm just getting some new cards up here. The first the card I have is from, I think it's Micah Dela Cruz. Great, thank you.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for hearing me out.
Sure.
But I am representing PCT. I am the marketing intern, and some of you guys are familiar with PCT or Pacific Coast Television. And if you don't know, we're your local community TV station. So, boom, right there on my back. Check that out. Okay, so I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that we are having our open house at the end of the month. March 28th. I'm extending the invitation to everybody here, city officials,
Thank you.
everyone here. I hope you guys will all make it. And yeah, it's going to be a workshop. We're going to have interactive things. You guys will learn what it takes to make TV shows, how to use these cameras. And yeah, everybody will walk away with something. It'll be hands-on, it'll be fun. And yeah, hope you guys can all make it. And yeah, so I hope to see all your faces, and you guys too, and everyone else in the community. And remember, we're recording, so if you're not there, I'll remember who's here and who's not. Okay? So be there, March 28th, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. All right, guys?
Great.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Julie Finklin from the Pacifica Libraries Manager.
Good evening. I have a prepared press release I'm going to read for you tonight. Beginning April 13, 2015, the 2 libraries located in Pacifica will be open fewer hours. Currently, the Sanchez Library and the Sharp Park Library are open a combined total of 74 hours per week, of which 60 hours are funded by the San Mateo County Library, and the extra 14 hours were previously cost-shared and funded in part by the library and by the City of Pacifica. Due to budget cuts, the City of Pacifica is no longer able to fund the cost share for additional hours. In order to minimize the community impact of the reduced hours, the library conducted a public survey. Customers were asked which days and hours they and their families are most and least likely to use the libraries. The library received over 700 responses to this survey. In addition to this public input, library usage data and staffing/operational issues were considered, as well as the availability of hours and schedules at nearby libraries. Based on this information, the library has developed the following schedule. The Pacifica Sharp Park Library, located at 104 Hilton Way, will be open 12 to 8 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 5 on Thursdays and Saturdays, and closed on Mondays and Fridays. The Pacifica Sanchez Library, located at 1111 Terra Nova Boulevard, will be open 12 to 8 on Mondays, 10 to 6 on Wednesdays, 10 to 5 on Fridays and Saturdays, and closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thank you.
Thank you for that update, Julie. Sean Stack, and he will be followed by Matt McPhail.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Sean Stack. I am a 30-year local here in Pacifica. I'm an active bike rider. I'm here today to talk about bicycles and the effect it has here in the community and a lot of kids here. I'm going to talk about a little bit real quick about bicycles and what it is. If you guys don't understand BMX, mountain biking, it's kind of the same thing, but they all can do a lot of different things. In the early 60s, freestyle bicycle riding was born right here in California. From San Francisco to San Diego, kids have been creating this new sport. We all know from there the sport exploded and went on to bigger things like the X Games. It went on to even bigger things in 2008 and became a part of the Summer Olympics. California has played a very vital part in the growth of this sport, yet fails to have even one sanctioned bicycle park. There are, however, numerous public skate parks around the Bay Area, but none of them allow bicycles. All across America, bicycles are being denied access to riding areas seemingly designed for their use, namely public skate parks. These parks are funded by tax dollars, yet not all tax-paying citizens are allowed to use them. This discrimination seems unfair. The solution is simple. Give the bike riders a legal place to ride their bikes on a proper course. Our dream is to create a state-owned and operated dirt park that will publicly be maintained. I took the liberty of printing out some photos for everyone so you can get an idea of what a dirt park actually looks like from a skate park, which is the same kind of sport, but different. The dirt park will feature several courses that are for BMX and mountain bike riders. The skills range from beginner to expert. The jumps will be built and maintained by the riders and operated by the city with possible membership fees and other revenue opportunities available within a dirt park area. The dirt park is an excellent way to build a community, promote exercise, and teach kids about a little old thing everyone calls work ethic. Any bicycle rider that has spent time riding dirt trails knows you spend just as much time maintaining the trails as you do riding them. This creates a unique connection to the sport you cannot be obtained at a skate park that's pre-built for your enjoyment. Pacifica's done a great job with their park programs, and guarantee out of every sport there is, someone from Pacifica is a professional at it. The kids at Pacifica have talents that deserve to be discovered and developed, and it's time for a place of our own. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Okay, the next speaker is Matt McPhail, and after Matt is Lynn Adams.
So my name is Matt McPhail. My wife Tracy and I own and operate Gearhead Bicycles in the Park Mall Shopping Center. I'm here to give you a little background about the Pacifica Bike Park project. In 2005, the city of Pacifica built one of the best skate parks in the country. Before the park opened, we petitioned Parks, Beach and Recreation to allow bicycles legal access to the park. They felt that the best course of action was to build a separate facility, and thus the Pacifica Bike Park Committee was formed. Over the next few years, we had monthly committee meetings to develop the concept and explore location options. In November of 2008, the City Council unanimously voted to move forward with the project and directed city staff to come back to them with a site recommendation. Over the course of the next several years, we were told that they were working on it, that it was on the agenda, that there were a few snags, but they would keep us informed. When Sean and I met with city staff last year to discuss the progress, or lack thereof, we were told that the project had been permanently shelved due to lack of interest. We were quite surprised by this due to the large amount of interest that we see for this project every day. As you may know, in October of 2008, the council expressed their approval of the continued use of the vacant parcel of land behind the Sanchez Library in Lindemar as a temporary bike park until a more legitimate facility could be built. Since then, countless hours of volunteer work have been put into building and maintaining a small dirt track and jump area. This is used every day by local kids, and we're constantly being asked when the city is going to build the real park. I've been advising patients as we were still under the impression that the city was working through various issues. So today we're here to let you know that there is a great deal of interest in this project, and we'd like to know what it would take to get it back on track to completion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt, for that. Next speaker is Lynn Adams.
I come here today to keep you updated on the continued work of the Pacifica Beach Coalition and its members, and I'm proud to inform you that we had 2 tsunami cleanups in the month of February. Together, combined, they drew about 100 volunteers. Most of those people came from out of state, from other parts of San Mateo County, outside of Pacifica, and it was really wonderful to see 3 different school groups from San Mateo County, including an honor society through the community colleges, have great participation of 20 and more people per group. It was really wonderful to see, and it's kind of a tribute to the beaches that we are drawing people from outside of Pacifica to come clean our beaches and help us and learn and then continue the work. Also, I'd like to say that Charles Schwab brought a team of people. AOL is scheduling a group of people, and Genentech is scheduling. They usually bring 4 to 6 groups of 50 or more people. So this is all coming up in the near future. They do cleanups and habitat restoration. I'm very, very proud to announce that we have our Earth Day event coming up. We have our new poster, and our poster is about we're honoring the bees. There's a photo there taken from a Pacifica Beach Coalition member of a poppy seed with a bee on it. And our Earth Hero slogan this year is Be the Change, be an Earth Hero. And we invited everybody to be an Earth Hero and to take action. The Beach Coalition is now taking sign-ups. Could be a small team or a big team for group participation. You get to work together side by side and cover an area of Pacifica that ranges from Skyline down to the beaches, from Muscle Rock down to Half Moon Bay, Princeton Harbor. A couple of the areas I know that are in desperate need would be the road by the car wash is in really bad straits, could definitely use a team. We don't have a team for Fossler this year, so we could use a team there. We're putting together a map of locations that can use your help, but it could be a place that you walk every day, and it could be you entering, you and your family or yourself, to clean up a street. And all you need to do is go on the Pacifica Beach Coalition website, and you can register that site. We have the EcoFest from 11:30 to 3, where we'll have environmental groups there for you to meet and to talk to. We'll have a bee speaker. We have bee assemblies coming to all of our schools, and we would like to thank all our supporters, Ecology of the Coast, City of Pacifica, hopefully today, Joe Quartini Memorial Fund, County of San Mateo, North Coast County Water, Pedro Point Surf Club, Mazzetti's Bakery, and our fiscal sponsor, Pacifica's Environmental Family. So I invite all of you to come join us and to have fun on Earth Day, and I will leave, there's some postcards in the back or posters if you have a place to post them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for all. Ian Butler is our next speaker, followed by Roger Medler.
Yeah, hi. I just was reading about the city goal-setting study session, and two of the goals that you came up with is maintaining financial sustainability and to preserve and enhance the natural resources. Now, those two goals are often considered to be kind of opposing forces and at loggerheads, but once in a while we have an opportunity to achieve both those goals in one fell swoop. And I think we have an opportunity for just such a thing at 570 Crespi, that property. Those of you that aren't familiar with that, that's between the community center and Crespi Center. And the back half of that property is the last remaining remnant of what was once Lake Matilda, which covered all of Lower Lindemar. It was actually a lake. We have this one little piece of lake that's in the very back of that property, which I took a field trip out there and we saw it. There's birds, breeding there, there's frogs. It's really nice and could be much better. In the front half of that property, a new person has bought it. He's cutting down a few trees and he wants to put a development in the front part there. And he would like to have a little more of the street front property there. There's about a 20-foot wide swath that belongs to the city, but that's on his side of the road there. And he would like to work out some kind of a swap or some kind of a purchase so he could have that frontage road, the city or some other entity could have that wetland to restore it. And I think that gives the city a bargaining chip that we can actually decide what do we want to be there. We have something that we can use to help realize our vision. The guy's talking about having it being a mixed use, of having the downstairs being shops and upstairs being housing. And I think that's kind of what the city wants, and it's in a good location for that kind of a thing. It's not up on the hillside or anything. It's kind of a dense area. So I would love to see the negotiation for that taken over in earnest. I understand that initially the city turned down his request because they wanted to leave that little space as a sound buffer between the community center and his development. I don't think that's a deal breaker. I think that that could be revisited and maybe addressed in other ways. But I would love to be able to figure out a way that we can get this back wetland restored properly. I understand that the city has limited resources, especially time with employees, and I think this would be a great example of when we could use other resources. We have 4 different nonprofits for whom this would be within their mission statement. One of them is the Pacifica Land Trust, and this is exactly what they do. They do land swaps like this. Also, the San Pedro Creek Watershed Coalition, which is still together, and they are good at getting grants and getting the different agencies together that can preserve a wetland in that area. Also, the Pacifica Historical Society thinks that this would be a great thing for them to be involved in because it does have a historical element. And also the Pacific Environmental Family, which I'm the chairman of, we'd love to extend our nonprofit status to any project happening there. So I would just like to see the effort taken to really seek out a negotiation that can really work to realize what our vision is and what we want to be there, because I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. So let's not give up before we even start on that. I know you're busy, but I think it's worth it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. After Roger Medler is Anita Reese.
Hi, anyway, I'd like to know what happened to the people that ran for city council. Anyway, we don't see them anymore. Anyway, if they wanted to help the community, they would show up here. I'm glad to hear your town meeting went well, and hopefully you, John, and Mike can turn the town around a little bit and help us out. It's about time we got some communication. Well, let's hope for some communication anyway. So I met with you, John, and I showed you some documents and talked to you, and I'm hoping to get a reply because, I sent you an email, and I hope you reply back soon. I'd appreciate that. And anyway, so, when you see these homeless people on the street, you guys can throw them a couple bucks, it wouldn't hurt. I do. I mean, hand them a couple bucks. These people are all right, and I like to stick up for them a little bit because I know quite a few of them. Anyway, I kind of hoping that, I don't know Chief Spanheimer, but I hope he stays chief from now on, because he's done me no wrong, so thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Anita Reese.
Anita Reese with the Pacifica Resource Center. We've been really busy with our food distributions, tax services, and getting ready for our 40th anniversary stroll at Rockaway Beach. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but Second Harvest Food Bank actually gave us a capacity building grant to increase the number of families we serve in Pacifica. Part of that work will be putting in a storage container in the side lot to our office so that we can store more food and do more in our limited space. We're also doing taxes through April 22nd. We still have some appointments available, or folks can drop off their taxes to be prepared by one of our highly skilled tax preparers, volunteers all. The 40th anniversary celebration is on April 26th from 2 to 4:30 at Rockaway Beach. We'll have invitations available and tickets available probably end of next week, so be on the lookout for that, along with flyers. And then lastly, we're getting ready for our volunteer appreciation lunch, which is scheduled for May 27th. So we'll have more information as soon as that comes up, but we have secured another paella lunch, so it should be really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Courtney Conlon of the Chamber, and followed by Julie Lancel. And our last card I have is for Krista Calerin. I'm not sure if Carlton, okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and fellow council members. My name is Courtney Conlon. I'm CEO of the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce, and I haven't been here in a couple of months, so I just thought it'd be good to come here and update you of things that we're doing at the Chamber. And one of the things, just last Monday, I got to go on the legislative bus tour up to Sacramento with my fellow colleagues from all over San Mateo County, other business and community leaders, and it was a great opportunity to meet with Assemblymember Kevin Mullen, State Senator Jerry Hill, Rich Gordon, as well as Phil Ting. And we had lunch and just lots of great networking. And then also, I'll be going along with a couple of other of my chamber members, my board members, to the Progress Seminar on April 18th. And I hope that I see, obviously, some of you there as well. So I wanted to now segue into our 2015-16 directory is underway. And this, of course, is considered and has been by many revered as the Bible of Pacifica. It definitely has everything at your fingertips, and we want to make sure that this will be utilized and has a great experience for the end user. And we are inviting all Pacifica businesses that have yet to become chamber members to have a presence in our directory. And we are offering them a standard 3-line listing, and we're offering that for $150 for the whole year. Of course, we're going to take the opportunity to see if we can talk story, because in addition to putting out a directory, we do a lot of advocacy, being the voice of the business community. We do a lot of networking. We put on educational seminars. And last but not least, we offer each chamber member a personalized web page, which means that they have an opportunity to have their business a higher SEO when people are Googling them. So that's one of the things that we're really excited about this year, hoping more of our businesses in Pacifica that look at the value of being a chamber member, and for whatever reason they don't, they'll at least have an opportunity for a cost-effective price to have a presence. I also want to talk about 2 networking at nights coming up. One is on March 25th, the night actually at the Devil's Slide Tap Room, and that's from 5:30 to 7. Then on April 22nd, we have the Pacifica Batting Cages. That's another networking at night from 5:30 to 7. Also on that same night, we have asked both Councilmember Mike O'Neill and Councilmember John Keener to come and do a breakfast and a lunch seminar and to talk about the pending and future infrastructure projects in Pacifica. And we're offering it to our chamber members and all people, the public is invited too. Chamber members, of course, because it's a privilege being a chamber member, you get a little bit better price for breakfast and lunch. And last but not least, I just want to say thank you very much for all that you're doing, Council. I appreciate everything that I know it takes to do what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Julie Lansell?
Thank you very much. I also want to thank you all for the job that you do. I think you're doing a wonderful job, each and every one of you. And I know how hard you work from experience. I wanted to briefly talk about the Map Your Neighborhood program in Pacifica that's run by the police department. For members of the public who don't know about it, it's a wonderful program run by our CERT advocates, so the Community Emergency Response Team. And our neighborhood just completed the formation of our team in where I live. And we had a wonderful meeting. You know, you kind of wonder at the beginning, are people going to actually show up? And they did, and we had a great opportunity to share skill sets and map those skill sets. There's a great brochure the police department provides for every household where they can really collect all the important information that they would need in case of an emergency when you really are not in contact or have the support anywhere because of a natural disaster. So I want to encourage other neighborhoods to really inquire about that and participate. I also just wanted to follow up on on Ian Butler's comments about Lake Matilda. I also had the opportunity, just because I was getting coffee at the little cafe there on Crespi, to talk with the property owner, and I think there's a great opportunity there to work with him and work with the community to really craft a solution that protects and preserves that valuable wetland area in the back. It's such a long lot, and his interest is, according to him, is just developing in the front. So I'm sure something can be worked out, and I'm really appreciative that you're going to move ahead on that. And it also is really great to see people hear about the bike park. It's something that, you know, we really do need in this community. I see kids jumping off all kinds of things with their bikes right now, and it would be great for them to have a bigger place to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the last card I have the last person I have a card for is Krista Carlson. And just a reminder, if anybody would like to speak during oral communications, get a card up now, or otherwise we will move on to considerations.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm a little late. My son was playing baseball, but I'm here as a mother of a 10-year-old son and who has a lot of friends who ride bikes. So I'm here in support of the bike park. We live back in the valley, and I've just gotten brave enough to let him ride his bike with friends without me, following him behind in a car. What I think would be nice about the bike park, not only does it provide a place for sort of unstructured activities for kids. My son plays a tremendous amount of team sports, but it's sort of a relaxing thing that he can do in addition to some of the skating that he's done. But by building a bike park, there's a level of safety from a parent that they're not on the streets riding their bikes, not on the sidewalks doing it illegally. And in addition, I think in this day and age with so much emphasis for the kids on all things tech, the iPads, and my son's back there actually using one right now, I think having a place where we could have them outside just enjoying being a kid would be great. So I support anything that you can do and anything that the bike community is doing to provide a place like that for our young people. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for those comments, and I don't think we have any more, so I'm going to bring it back, and this is going to bring us to considerations, and we are on item 6 of considerations, request by Bridge Housing for city waiver of covenant as part of the process to transfer ownership of the Ocean View Apartments from National Church Residences to Bridge Housing. Staff report, please.
Good evening, City Council. Lori Tinfo, the City Manager. I'm just going to share with you the structure for this report. It's a little unusual. Okay. First of all, we'll have Sue Block from Burke, Williams, and Sorensen, our City Attorney's Office, who's going to be talking about the waiver of covenant that really is your core action tonight. In addition, Supervisor Don Horsley is here, as is Allie Gaylord from Bridge Housing. They both have played key roles in the whole transfer of property, which you're going to hear more about from Sue. So after Sue is finished with her presentation, Don and Allie will step up, and you'll get to hear from them as well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to provide just a quick background on the project and describe the actions that you're being asked to take this evening. In the year 2000, a collaborative effort was launched by the city, National Church Residences, the county, and Cali Cafe to preserve the 100 units of affordable senior housing provided at the Ocean View Apartments. The city acquired the property, conveyed it to National Church Residences, and financing was provided by the redevelopment agency, the county. Cali Cafe provided a $9.4 million loan, and the city provided a loan in the amount of $1.45 million. To provide that loan, the city first borrowed money from Cali Cafe through the HELP program and then used the proceeds of that loan to make a direct loan to NCR. By the year 2006, NCR found itself unable to make payments to the city on the loan that it had borrowed. The city, however, had the obligation to repay the loan that it had borrowed from Cali Cafe and continued to make those payments and negotiated for an extension of the term of the Cali Cafe loan. Currently, the project is in desperate need of renovation. The cash flow continues to be insufficient to service all of the debt secured by the property, and we're finding ourselves in jeopardy of losing the 100 affordable units. Bridge Housing, a very experienced developer of affordable housing in the Bay Area, has proposed a project that would involve the refinancing and rehabilitation of the development. They would renovate the project, refinance the project in a way that would extend the term of affordability and would permit the repayment of the city loan, which would in turn enable the city to repay the loan that it owes to Cali Cafe. In order to effectuate this whole transaction, the City Council is asked to approve the execution of 4 documents this evening. The first is a 4th amendment to the Cali Cafe loan agreement. That document would extend the term of the Cali Cafe loan to the city until the earlier of the date that the city loan is repaid or the fall of 2015. CalHFA recently agreed to an extension of the term. I think the staff report may say something slightly earlier than the fall, but they have agreed to that. The second agreement is a collateral assignment of the city's rights to the loan that NCR owes to the city and the loan documents that secure that loan. And this would provide security to CalHFA to secure the repayment of the loan that the city owes to CalHFA. The third document is a help loan release, and that document essentially would commit the city to do several things upon repayment of the NCR loan to the city. First, it would commit the city to consent to the transfer of the property to an affiliate of Bridge Housing. It would release Bridge from liability that arose prior to the time that Bridge takes title. And it would also commit the city to release the affordable housing covenant when the property is transferred. That is also the subject of the fourth document, the release of affordability covenant, which would essentially terminate the city's affordable housing restriction. However, the project would remain restricted for at least 55 years pursuant to a number of agreements that would be in place as required by other sources of financing. The tax credit program requires a 55-year term of affordability. That's one of the tools that would be used to refinance the project. The county would also have affordability restrictions. So the units will remain affordable. The release of the city's covenant would simply streamline the number of documents that are on the title. So that's the summary of what you're being asked to approve this evening. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I have one question from Councilmember Neihardt.
Yes, thank you very much. It was very clear, and the staff report was clear. Just one question. Other than what they already obtained by loan, National Church Residences walks away with nothing.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with that.
Mayor Pro Tem DeGree.
Is it a long answer to tell me what Bridge affiliates are? You know, there is a spokesperson from Bridge who can tell you in more detail. The name of the affiliate, I think it's, the initials are BVHI, and I just have to look to see what That's that... okay. I mean, eventually, because you did say that the affordable would last at least 55 years, correct? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know we also have Supervisor Don Horsley here, and I believe you're going to present a little bit of information, and maybe we'll do that now, and then I'll bring it out to the public. Thank you very much.
Well, good evening, Mayor Irvin and council members and city staff as well. Actually, your staff pretty much covered the issue pretty adequately, and what I did is I came with Allie Gaylord from Bridge Housing to actually give a little presentation on how this works. But as you know, this is it's kind of an exciting deal because essentially we have 100 units of affordable housing for seniors that will be preserved, as you've heard, for 50 some odd years, and we hope the building lasts for the 55 years or so. But it is before it was essentially was a building, it was part of your redevelopment. The county ended up inheriting that with our, as the successor agency, with our housing department. So it was a work between the city of Pacifica, the county of San Mateo, HART, which is the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust, as well as Bridge Housing, as well as National Church Residences. And Allie is here. She's going to give you a presentation, basically give you some information about this building. Building really needs a lot of renovation. Right. And I know the 100 units are going to be completely, well, they'll be remodeled. And Allie can answer that question better than I, but she'll give you some slides and some of the problems that the building has. And it does have some significant issues that have to be addressed. So with that, Allie Gaylord.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, and the staff. It's been a pleasure to work with the staff of the City of Pacifica on this property. This is Ocean View Senior Apartments. Thank you also to Sue and to Supervisor Horsley for the introduction. There we go. I'm just going to talk about a few slides, give you the project context, the Ocean View physical condition of the property, and a little bit about our recapitalization plan. I know it's a little bit small on the screen up there, but Ocean View Senior Apartments is at 555 Crespi, right off of the ocean. So we know that it's the first thing that fog, when you look out the window, is hitting tonight. So as you can imagine, that's taken a toll on the building. The property is 100 affordable senior units built in 1973. The original owner was going to displace the residents when the mortgage was repaid in the year 2000. National Church Residences was able to come in and, with the assistance of the city, Cali Tafé, County of San Mateo, and the former redevelopment agency, was able to purchase that building and save the affordability on it and keep the residents at place in the time. Unfortunately, there were not enough funds in 2000 to do a complete renovation of the building, so just a few improvements were made, but as you can already tell, the building was 30 years old, already needed some significant work. And for a number of years, the NCR has been working under a challenging context of the existing debt structure. There are 7 sources of financing in excess of $10 million, including Cali Tafé had a prepayment penalty to repay that $9 million loan. You had to pay an extra $2 million just to get out of that loan. So it was financially infeasible for National Church Residences to get the capital that they needed to make the improvements to the property. Additionally, and more specifically to Pacifica, the Pacifica loan from Cali Tafé that was turned around and loaned to National Church Residences during the original acquisition was only a term of 10 years, yet they made the loan to the project for 30 years. So the loan had been in expiration since 2010. So that was a huge liability to the city of Pacifica. The city doesn't have $1 million laying around to go pay Cali Tafé, although I'm sure you would if you had it. So Bridge was contacted in early 2014 by National Church Residences to assist in trying to unwind this deal and get it into workout. The project was struggling with the major capital needs, the maturing debt, and really needed help from a local partner. Bridge was formed in 1983, and we work throughout the state of California. We have over 13,000 homes for affordable homes in the state, and we've also expanded into Washington and Oregon. So Bridge has a big presence in California and in San Mateo County. So we felt this was the right fit to take this property on. So a little bit more about the property. This is a community asset. This is a very important home for our 100 seniors. It's located near retail across the street from the senior center, and the bus stop transit is right out the front door. It's currently affordable to residents between 30% and 80% of area median income. So for a 2-person household, that's between $26,000 and $70,000 per year, depending on the number of households, residents in the household. There are 100 one-bedroom units in the 2 3-story buildings, and it's an operating property. So the urgent physical needs include water intrusion at the building envelope and the windows, deteriorated siding, it needs elevator modernization, energy efficiency upgrades, and interior improvements. The estimated budget is over $8 million for these renovations. And you can see a couple of the photographs here. Just the water and the salt air has taken its toll on the exterior of the building, and it just really needs some attention now before it gets any worse. So the acquisition by Bridge will allow recapitalization of the project, which will total about $35 million in total reinvestment. The recap will address physical needs and the maturing debt issues, including the repayment of the HELP loan that I spoke about. The affordability restrictions will be maintained for 55 years through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, CalHFA, the tax-exempt bond program, and we also have restrictions by the county HART loan that's going to remain in place. The recapitalization supports affordability and improves the quality of the asset, so it will be a viable asset for the next 20-plus years. Additionally, we were able to secure an award of 31 project-based Section 8 vouchers from the San Mateo County Housing Authority on the condition that we could put together a financing plan that required no additional funding from the county. Our financing plan achieves that, and the county is ready to complete that transaction of vouchers upon rehab completion. The benefits to the city of Pacifica for the rehab of this project are the preservation of affordability and the maintenance of the stability in the residents' lives in this building. We'll also be enhancing the resident quality of life by the renovations and the energy efficiency upgrades that we're planning on making. The financing structure relieves the city of Pacifica of the HELP loan debt, and you'll get a great partner with Bridge Housing as the owner and operator for years to come. So I think those are my comments. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to explain a little bit more about the transaction.
Sure. Councilmember Neihardt.
Yes, just a quick question, and mostly it comes from a number of residents who have been to council over the years with problems. And so my question comes in operation. Could you just talk a little bit, because I think I know, but because Bridge is well-known and I'm much happier there, but could you talk a little bit about the operation? Do you have affordability on a sliding scale? Is there those sorts of things? Because rent increases and other things made it impossible for some individuals to stay there.
Right, so I think the residents have then come to council in the past and with concerns about affordability and the maintenance of the affordability of the property. So yes, our refinancing will have deed restrictions on affordability for 55 years. So that also limits rent increases. And we have affordability bands at 30, 50, and 80%, sorry, 60 and 80% of area median income. So we will be affordable to several levels of area median income, as well as those 31 project-based vouchers from the County Housing Authority.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree.
What happens to the present residents while the renovations are going on?
We're planning on all of the current residents remaining in place. If we have to do unit renovations, folks would be temporarily housed, and we would have a relocation plan, hire a relocation consultant, and pack those residents up, move them out for a short period of time, and then move them back into their newly renovated unit. This is something that Bridge has a lot of experience with. We've actually just completed a full renovation of a property in Sacramento. It was 75 units of public housing in downtown Sacramento that we successfully completed full renovations and temporary relocation very smoothly.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, I'd just like to say this is such a win-win situation, and it is so exciting just getting all these different entities working together with the county supervisors, the city, everybody. I'm really curious because I think it's important that communities know how did everybody come together? Who contacted Bridge? How did this take place? It's a great story, and we were in really a serious situation where we couldn't cover the loan that needed to be paid, and there's 100 units of senior citizens that could have been out on the street. So I would just really like to give accolades.
Thank you so much for the compliment. This has been an extreme effort on the part, as you mentioned, the city, the county, cleaning up the effects of the redevelopment agency dissolution. Right. We started with that. It was just really a group effort. And Bridge has been in San Mateo County for a number of years, so I think we were one of the larger developers that would kind of rise to this challenge. Bridge has a lot of history in renovating our own properties, as well as working, like I said, in Sacramento with other agencies. So I think that that's just been a great effort on everyone's part. Bridge was able to use our relationships with not only the city and counties, but up at CalHFA, lobbying for the forgiveness of a portion of that $2 million prepayment penalty. And CalHFA is also going to provide almost $2 million of soft debt to replace the money that we are paying back. So I think it was just part of Bridge's wheelhouse and our mission that we were able to dedicate staff time and effort to this really needed project.
Great, thank you again. Councilmember Neihardt, did you?
I just wanted to go back to the move for a minute, because we'll get these questions.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the residents that are there have been there long enough that they recall a renovation that was required after an incident that had happened. And when you say it went smoothly, you mean you actually assisted people in packing up and moving them into a place that was well-maintained and cared for and all of those kinds of things?
Yep, that's correct. So the relocation process is obviously very sensitive, and when you're going into people's homes, we take the greatest and utmost care when we're dealing with our residents. So we hire AutoTemp, which is a service that actually prepares all of our relocation plans and manages the interactions with each of the residents. So that's not something that Bridge is even taking on. We're managing that process, but we have a specialized company that does that. And what they do is then they hire a moving company. The moving company packs everything up. AutoTemp has selected a temporary location, so it's either usually with a local hotel or friends and family, and that process is all run through AutoTemp. The belongings are stored until the unit has been renovated. Then everything is moved back in, and the residents come home to reside in their newly renovated unit. So that was in the case in Sacramento. It was a gut rehab of each unit. We fully pulled out the kitchens, the carpeting. There were other issues there, seismic retrofits, so people could not remain in place there. We've also done renovations where people can come live in their apartment. There's just some ancillary work with whether it's to the windows or something, but it doesn't cause them to move out. So we're still determining exactly how extensive our scope is going to be. So I can't say for certain that it's going to be one or the other today.
But in the case of a move, these are individuals that are sensitive to seniors, their entire life's possessions, and sometimes with physical challenges that limit their ability to pack and stand and carry and those sorts of things.
Certainly, and we
all
take
that's
care
taken into
Yep.
account.
Yep, the movers take care of that.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned the Sacramento project was a 100% senior rehab.
Any other questions from council? Okay, Supervisor Horsley, I have a card, but I think that was, did you have some additional comments you'd like to make?
No, I think the card was made earlier, just to
Great.
make sure that you knew that I was here, that I wanted
Absolutely.
to just address. This really was an exciting project, and it really is a good partnership. Council Member Neihardt asked if NCR got anything out of it. They did. We did have to pay them $100,000, essentially. Well, that was we had to do that, and we, that was a difficult negotiations, but essentially, I have to take a little credit. I pushed it through at the very end. It had to be done. So I think it's a win-win for all of us, and it's really a win for the seniors who live in these actually facilities that really need to be remodeled. So I think Ollie did a great job of, and that's one of the reasons I wanted her to come to share the, I think, really good news for the city. It's really, I think it's a great news for the city, great news for the residents of the Ocean View Apartments.
Great.
So thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And your part in this endeavor.
Thank you. I think that's all from me, unless there are any other questions.
I think, so now I don't have any other cards from the public, so I'm going to bring it back to council, and we'll just make a couple last-minute comments, and somebody may have something to say to you, but
Okay,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Nyhart?
Absolutely. When Supervisor Horsley told me about this back before I was finished being mayor, I was thrilled. I can't say enough about, first of all, getting out from under this as a city, but the biggest thing, $35 million put into this project with renovations that were sorely needed in that building. The residents, as long as you care for each and every one of them as if they're precious relatives of your own, I'm totally into it. And I know that Bridge will do that because Bridge has a great reputation in the county. We've done a wonderful collaboration previously. And so all I can say is thank you, Supervisor Horsley, thank you to Bridge, thank you to everybody. I am so grateful, and I'm grateful to staff that help with this. This is exactly what we need, and I know the residents will be thrilled. And Supervisor Horsley, I think you should do a little, meet and greet. They have a lovely little community room. I've spoken in it myself. I think you should go out there and talk to the residents about it.
Any other comments from council? Yeah, again, I'm just going to reiterate what was just said. This is such a win-win situation, and it's giving our senior citizens a safe, stable, wonderful, secure place to live, and that there's nothing more gratifying than seeing something like this take place when groups get together, the county, the city, the Bridge, everybody, even the Cal, HAFA, that came together and contributed to this magnificent project. And again, thanks to everybody that was involved. This is the way we love to see things work. So I'm grateful for everything that happened with this project. And I think, oh wait, I have one more. Mayor Pro Tem Degree?
Right, the community at large and the city council, the city has been very concerned about the residents here, the seniors here, so I really appreciate this. This is great. Thanks.
Okay, and with that, Councilmember Nyhart, are you ready to make a motion?
We need to do them separately, I take it. We can do them all together. You never let us do that. All right. So, with that, I move with great gratitude to Supervisor Horsley and Bridge, and thank you, thank you, thank you. I move to adopt the resolution 1564, and that's it.
You have to read through? No. Okay.
You need a second? No?
Yeah.
A second, please.
Great. Okay, we're going to take a vote. And that passes 5-0.
Since we're in an applauding mood tonight, I want to get involved.
Definitely, that deserves an applaud.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you again.
I'm going to rush to the rest.
Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute break. Maybe 3.
You get them back in 2 minutes. Good luck.
Yes, ma'am.
One increase. Do you have that? Yeah. You're even going to present it? Yeah. Okay, so then you have to like.
What is water?
Great. What questions I need to figure out? The next item under considerations is item 7. This is the long-term financial plan update for 2015 to 2020. And I know we have a staff report, so I'll wait for that.
Honorable Mayor Irvin, Mayor Pro Tem Degree, and members of the Pacifica City Council. My name is Lorenzo Hines, the Assistant City Manager, and I'm here to present the city's long-term financial plan update for years 2015 through 2020. Now, tonight essentially begins the start of the 2015-16 budget process. So what I intend to present to you tonight is an overview of what's going on economically at the national, state, and regional levels. Then we're going to get into the long-term financial and what the projected numbers look like. You'll be able to see the impacts on the 2015-16 budget through this presentation. And this is for information only, although we are asking you to accept the long-term plan. So let's start at a national level. We've got increased business spending, we've got rising incomes, cheaper oil prices, we've got lower interest rates. And so that's very good news. We've got financial markets that are trending into some super ultra high places, but there's no evidence to suggest that this is some sort of bubble. It's just the activity that is warranted at this time. Regarding interest rates, the Fed has little to no reason to even tamper with interest rates at this point in time. And so that's good news. And believe it or not, the falling prices at the pump have not actually increased consumer spending. So I thought that was interesting. Gas prices are starting to tick back up, albeit at a slow pace. From the state perspective, we've got virtually every aspect of the state's economy is improving. Jobs are up, home prices are rising, we've got new construction activity. One of the things that I mentioned when we did our mid-year report is that we were seeing an uptick in business permits activity, and so that's indicative of what's going on throughout the state. We've got the agricultural sector has done a good job of weathering drought conditions. We still remain a top tourist destination, and businesses and consumers are still driving our growth and spending. So, from a national perspective, we're doing great. From a state perspective, we're doing great. However, at the state level, there are some challenges. And California faces issues regarding infrastructure investment. We've got housing concerns, as we know, making the state more friendly to manufacturing. We've got a tax system that could use reforming, and the state itself needs to widen its tax base. And these are all lessons learned from the financial, let's just say, complications that arose back in 2007 and 2008. From our regional perspective, this data comes from activity during fall, as of fall 2014. And this is the data that provides economic trends for the San Francisco Metropolitan Division, which includes San Francisco, Marin, and San Mateo counties. So the employment forecast for annual growth of 3%. So we intend for employment to keep growing. Unemployment rate to fall by 4% by the middle fall to 4% by the middle of 2015. So more folks are working and unemployment is going down. Here's a key. The professional, scientific, and technical service industry remains one of the largest job creators in the region. And so from July 2013 to July 2014, the industry grew by 9,200 jobs, representing 25% of the net increase of total non-farm employment. From the second quarter of 2013 to the second quarter 2014, however, rents for office properties in San Francisco in the Metropolitan Division have also risen, higher than those of the state. So I wanted to give you that overview and then talk to you a little bit about the forecast itself. So we've got our revenues and expenditure projections. There are three scenarios. You've got optimistic, you've got moderate, you've got pessimistic. And the moderate represents the most likely scenario. We've got a 5-year forecast. We're only focusing on the general fund at this point in time, and I believe our assumptions are very transparent. So let's look at our top 7 general fund revenues. Now, as you can see, secured property tax at about $8.9 million represents 33% of the general fund. We've got vehicle license fees, retail sales tax, franchise tax, the TOT, utility users tax, and grants. And then we have the remainder of the general fund revenues. So as you've seen in the prior slides, at a national level, at a state level, and at a regional level, the economy seems to be growing at a respectable pace. Now, if we can figure out a way to somehow hook these major revenues into that prosperity and somehow drive these revenues into a higher state, so goes the city's fortunes. So that's our chore, trying to drive these wedges and to make them bigger and more prosperous and more sustainable. The forecast you're about to see, our rationale is based on changes in the consumer price indexes, CPI. We looked at San Mateo County property tax estimates. Excess ERAF is not included in the general fund totals per our policy change about a year ago. I also had many discussions with the directors getting historical background, and also the impact of recent labor agreements is also factored in. So we'll take a look at the assumptions on the revenue side. And as you can see, we have our revenues, we have our 3 scenarios, optimistic, moderate, and pessimistic. I will start with moderate and then sort of work my way out to optimistic and pessimistic. Now, with moderate, as far as property taxes are concerned, I used an inflation factor of 4%. And we looked at the most recent San Mateo County assessment as of December, and so that's where the 4% came from. We used 4% from 2015 through 2018. I'm sorry, we used 4% from up to 2015 and 2015 to 2018, and we did 3%, 3.5% thereafter. I actually think, give me just a second here. Yes, so that's correct. Now, with the retail sales tax, we have a consultant that provides us with information about our activities, and they have provided us with estimates for 2014-15 and 2015-16. And so from 2016-17 and forward, I inflated those numbers by 3%, and that's based on the CPI. And the CPI is sitting at roughly 3% as of December 14. Other business taxes, we'll start with our TOT, our occupancy tax. We've got a projected increase of 10%, and That's based on new hotel rooms coming online during 2014-15, and so we were able to see that increase. All categories are grown by an inflation factor of 3% based on, again, the CPI as of December. Current service charges. This is sort of a potpourri of construction permits, other licensing and permits, beach and community center related, recreation fees, public safety service charges. We went with an inflation factor that is related to CPI and use that for 2014 calendar year and going forward. Other revenues are miscellaneous revenues, intergovernmental revenues, fines and forfeitures. I kept those flat for the moderate. And with transfers, I forecasted them at the sort of the agreed upon amounts and timelines, because typically with transfers, it's some sort of agreement between funds that's approved by council that dictates how long the payments will last and what the payments will be made up of. Now, the optimistic and pessimistic forecasts were derivatives of the moderate forecast, and where I merely went in, took a look at the economic activities and projected them to be more aggressive or more optimistic or less aggressive or pessimistic. And that's how we're able to get the bandwidth. So the answer is somewhere between those three.
Through the mayor, do you mind if I ask a question about income before we get into expenses?
Yes.
You know, we're spending a lot of time talking in the transportation world about gas taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a sales tax on gas taxes, and it fluctuates pretty significantly with the price of gas. But this issue of consumption, I mean, we're wanting to drive fossil fuels down, but by the same token, are you taking, is any of that in what the consultant projects on sales tax?
Yeah, the consultant actually projected a level of retail sales tax that was lower than our projected 14-15 tax. And so I took that lower estimate, basically dropped the baseline down, and then trended it out from there.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to know.
Any other questions on revenues? Okay. On the expense side, our major expense is salaries, of course, and the next major expense is benefits. And benefits are driven primarily by pension costs. Now, our friends at CalPERS have indicated that their rates are going up quite a bit over the next few years. And so we were able to take that increase and present it to you here in a summarized form. And we've broken out 3 of our larger bargaining units to give you an example of what those rates look like. So we've got the police, we've got fire, and we've got miscellaneous. You'll notice that the police, as far as the city's portion of the pension payment, the city's, we pay 35.304 up to, from starting in 2015-16 up to 53.7% in 2019-20. The employee pays during this time period 12%. The pension obligation bond payments represent 12.5% of these salaries. As far as fire is concerned, city pays anywhere from starting at 27.651% in 2015-16 up to 2019-20. In 2019-20, we'll pay 40.3%. The employee pays 12%, and this reflects the new MOU for fire. The pension obligation bond payments represent 19% from 2015-16 to 2019-20. 19% of the salary. Miscellaneous, we start at 15.266 or 86 and go up to 18.7% in 2019-20. Miscellaneous, the employee pays 8%. And pension obligation bond payments are anywhere from 24.8% up to 28.2% over the projection. Any questions? Yes, sir.
You're saying here the pension obligation bonds for police are 12.5%, fire 19%, on miscellaneous 24.8. So 19% of what?
Of the total salaries for that particular group.
Okay, so then looking at fire, my math shows we're paying, of the base salary then, we're paying 58% towards pension plan? If you add the 27, fire now, 27.6, 12, and 19, you're at 58%.
I think you've got, I think you're correct, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure I was understanding it correctly. That's
Right. Well, we wanted to present those as a percent of salary.
Right, right. Thank you.
All right. Okay. The assumptions for salaries and wages, we basically kept those flat with the exception of the recent MOU for fire. That was built in, that's the only increase that's built into salaries and wages. It is also built into benefits as well. Benefits also reflect the CalPERS contribution rates based on our annual evaluation of at June 30, 2013, which you saw the rates on the prior slide. Departmental expenditures and other service charges have been inflated by 3% based on the CPI. Capital outlay, we've grown by 3%. And for intergovernmental and debt service, we kept those flat. Yes, ma'am.
Does that 3% on capital outlay, does that pick up the construction costs increases? Because they've been pretty much jumping for any transportation-oriented.
Right. I had a good discussion with our Public Works Director. He felt comfortable that the 3% inflator was about the right number.
Okay. Going higher at the TA.
Okay. All right. Now, bear in mind, our capital is probably not as intense or as volatile.
No, but it's still paving.
Okay.
And usually grant funded, so okay.
Okay. So I'm going to refer to my sheet in front of me because I tried to get everything up there, but it's a little small. But I wanted to let you see the trends and from a moderate perspective and see how it all fleshes out and see how the numbers go from the 2015 projected to the 2019-20 projected. Let me bring your attention to the line that says total general fund surplus deficit, because typically this is the line I look at first. And so what you're able to see is the surplus and deficit that we are running every year. And I also wanted you to see that the policy change that was, or the policy of utilizing some of the, utilizing payments from Fund 34 to smooth the bond payments, are pretty much what's keeping us in the black for the next couple of years.
Can you define Fund 34 for the public, please?
Oh, that's the utility fund where we are, where the general fund has received a loan from Fund 34 for, I believe, this fiscal year and next fiscal year and through 2016-17, and we'll begin paying back Fund 34 starting in 2017-2018.
So that's the money from the wastewater treatment plant loan?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And 2017 is when we start dipping below again.
2017-18, yes.
Just saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And no real salary increases in this.
Right. Which in a sense is somewhat unrealistic, given that we are currently working with the other 8 bargaining units right now to reach agreements with them all. But for right now, this is moderate.
Go ahead.
Okay, on the under expenses on this page, you have transfers out 380. What are the transfers out?
I believe those are apparently loans or obligations that we have made to other funds or entities. I'll have to do a little research and get back to you on those.
Okay. But the transfer out pension obligation repayment, that is for when we're repaying the sewer fund in 2017-18, right?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you another snapshot or another visual of the moderate forecast, which is the chart on page 15. And what we've done here is sort of diagrammed the moderate revenues and the moderate expenses. The revenues are in blue, the expenses are in white. And you can see how the two lines cross in just during the 2016-2017 fiscal year.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
You know, about this trend that we constantly seem to be coming to terms with. Over time, something will happen, we'll have excess money from the sale of property or something, and then all of a sudden, we're back into the fact that over time, our expenditures are rising faster than our revenues. And I wonder if you can comment on that. Is there anything that you see that we can do over time to correct this this dynamic that we have?
Well, just based on my short time with you, and I'm going to reiterate something I mentioned earlier, is when we saw that pie with our 7 big revenues. Now, grants, we're doing okay in grants, but that's basically we apply and we compete to get those. But the other 6 revenues, that's driven off of our core business. And so, I mean, why don't we go back to the page, and that way, so page 8. So I'm going to put my MBA on here and take the CPA hat off. Now, we've got to figure out some way to utilize our competitive advantage, our geographical advantage, our competitive advantage. We have something to offer that our competitors or our neighboring towns clearly can't offer, and we have to figure out what that is. And once we figure out what our competitive advantage is, then we can figure out a way to exploit it in a way that it will drive these revenues higher and more and make them more sustainable. That's the key right there. If we can drive these higher and make them more sustainable, we're in good shape. Now, I come from a jurisdiction up in Washington State where our sales tax stream goes somewhere between 16 million and 17.8 million. And because of the infrastructure that we have in that town, or had in that town, we were able to count on those funds.
Right.
So even during the downturn in 2008, there was concern because it went down to 15 million.
Right.
And, but when I left, I was projecting close to 18 million when I left. But again, they've got a regional mall, it's there, it's in place, it's established, and it's sustainable. And so from my perspective, again, 3 to 4 months in, that's what I'm looking for. What is our competitive advantage that differentiates us from the town to the north, the town to the south, the towns over the hill, that will allow us to prosper?
And one interesting aspect that you presented during your presentation, which is talking about the TOT, and you said that it was estimated to be going up by 10% this past year due to, and then it was going to flatten out at 3%. But looking into the future, there is the possibility that we are going to have more hotel rooms, looking at Beach Boulevard and what that potentially can offer our community might be
Right. Right. Now, you'll find with my estimates, I'm going to be, even with the moderate, I'm going to be conservative because I'd rather come in here and be too low than too high.
Right.
But yeah, that is, you've hit on it. That's a possible way to drive revenues, the occupancy tax. There's also the retail sales tax. Does our tax base need to be wider? And if it needs to be wider, how wide, and what does that tax base consist of? So that's sort of occupied the back of my mind. What's our competitive advantage? What do we do better than anybody else?
We always, I'm going to say it, we constantly talk about our scenic location, our beaches, our hills, our those sorts of things. But the problem is making those make money in a meaningful way for us. That we haven't ever capitalized on really well.
Okay.
And that's unfortunately where we're at.
Well, we've got a new position coming on board,
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's some hope there. You've also got a assistant city manager and a city manager that also looks to these things. We're trying to figure this out. All right, so that's the key right there. If we can make that pie grow, that's the key.
What are your factors in that, in 2018-19 projected, we have a deficit of $399,811, but then in 1920, we have a deficit of $1,039,000. Why do you see such a huge deficit in 1920?
In 2020?
Pardon?
2020, right?
Yeah, fiscal year 2019, 2020.
Well, a lot of it has to do with this big bump in personnel benefits. So you'll see that the personnel benefit jumps up by about 500,000.
And if I might jump in, Lorenzo?
Yes.
It's also the year we start paying back the pension obligation bond in such a huge amount.
You
So
got
you'll
to
see that $905,000 there in an expense.
Right.
And so that really is one of the things that contributes to that big jump as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council members have questions? Are you still presenting?
Actually, I'd like to. I think I got a couple more pictures to show
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
and then we can talk. So we've got our moderate revenues and expenses, and so the next slide, slide 16, shows you all revenues for all three forecasts. Notice they form a tight little band with the moderate in the middle. Now, if I were to overlay the expenses, the moderate expenses, that's how they look. And so I am open for any questions that the council may have.
I had another question. One of the points, very significant points that was brought up was the fact that these scenarios don't include salary increases, and our
Right.
staff has already gone through the past 5 years of not having any significant salary increases, and so that's absolutely not, a reasonable expectation. So can you give me your thoughts on that?
Well, we're going to work with the other 8 bargaining units and reach an agreement or reach agreements that I believe will be mutually beneficial for both the bargaining units and the city. And with recognition of our concerns for fiscal sustainability and their concerns for increased wages and benefits, and yeah, it's a tough question at this point because we've just started the process, and but I did not put any salary increases in there because I frankly just did not know what to put in. But back on the page for salary increases, or where I laid out the salary assumptions. Whoa, sorry. You can see what a 1% increase in salary gets us.
And that's 128,800.
Yes, but I've also factored in another 40% for benefits because we've got salaries, the increase in salaries drive benefits, and so I put 40% in there. That's conservative. It may be higher, but 1% right now I'm looking at about 180,000.
Okay.
And so yes, we have work to do. We have work to do.
Cut out for us.
Yes, we do.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree?
What kind of a leeway do we have regarding either timing or whatever to pay back the bonds? Is there any wiggle room at all?
No, well, I haven't really read the bond agreement, hadn't had a chance to read it, but in all the bond agreements that I've read, the amortization schedules they're laid out. Sometimes there are prepayment penalties, sometimes there aren't. So I'd have to get into our particular agreement.
But if you're commenting, excuse me, but
Yes.
if you're commenting on the pension obligation bond repayment, which perhaps that's what you're focusing on, we did spread the fire and the police payments out to 2020, which is when the money that we've borrowed from Fund 34 is due back.
Right.
So that really is our hard stop.
Okay.
And that's why we use that timing. So that's the constraint on that loan.
Okay. And let's see, the graphs you showed us was moderate overlay, right? Not the optimistic overlay? Did you give us an
Yes.
That was there too.
Yes.
Was that there too?
Yes.
Searching. You've discovered the point. We have to be optimistic.
Councilmember O'Neill.
A couple of things I just wanted to kind of paraphrase Mayor Irvin in that our employees haven't had a raise in several years, but they've actually been taking pay cuts.
Right.
Because they have been absorbing the full increase of all medical insurance. We froze this, we put a ceiling on how much the city's contributing, and they've been eating the full cost, anything above that. So, I mean, I think the inflation factor there is something like 3 to 6% a year in medical insurance. A question here, the pension obligation bonds, do you have any forecast as to what the PERS is going to be charging when they now, because right now they're at what, 7.5% or some, or 6% for unfunded liabilities?
Oh, you're talking about the PERS unfunded liability?
Yes, yes.
I think it's larger than that, but we
Yes.
would have to go back and look at the documents and come back to you.
Because the way it's laid out in the valuation statements, they give us a percent, a flat percent.
Right.
And then they give us a dollar amount on top of that flat percent. That is the unfunded liability. And so what we've done in your charts here is we converted that percentage and the dollars into a percent of salaries. And so you have it reflected in that slide that shows you the pension rates.
But I thought the entire reason of issuing pension obligation bonds is that we issued it at a lower interest rate than what PERS charges us, okay? They base it somewhat on their expected rate of return in investments, and that's why we're like 6 and they were thinking of like 7 something.
Oh,
and I was just
yes.
wondering, do you have any estimate of the, of the new rate, what it's going up?
Yeah, just to highlight that, so they, at the time that we issued the bonds in 2010, they were expecting a return on their investment of 7.75%.
Right.
We sold the pension obligation bonds for, I believe it was 6.8%. And so, yeah, that difference in the interest rate was a savings to the city.
Right. Okay, so I'm just asking basically, do we know what the new rate would be? And is it possible, or should we investigate doing some pension obligation bonds to lower that rate again? Or is that prohibited to have 2 series of bonds for pension obligations, or?
Well, I would want to get back to you with a recommendation about additional bonds. They have reduced their rate of return expectations to 7.5%, which is probably why our rates are going up. They've also changed a number of other assumptions, like the length of life. People are living longer. They've now factored that in, and that's also a component of why our rates are going up. Whether or not it'd be worth selling or issuing additional pension obligation bonds, we'd want to do some more investigation and come back to you.
I was just thinking, I mean, if we can issue them out now at 4 or 5%, I mean, we have, what, 200 basis point spread between what, if they're at 7 and we can issue them at 5, I mean, that's 200 basis points, which would be some money in our pocket versus PERS. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Mayor.
Well, that's, on that note, that's always my, and I think I understand it, but it boggles my mind because my personal investment doesn't guarantee me anything. So PERS charges us based on that guarantee. And it's kind of an interesting phenomenon why so many of the universities pulled out, you know?
Pulled out of the...
Out of PERS.
Out of PERS. Well, I have seen graphs that demonstrate that PERS has been able to achieve 7.75% over the past 30 years. And so it was a reasonable expectation, and in fact, it may end up being a reasonable expectation as we get into the future. But even if, and so them reducing it to 7.5 is a small change. But what will really impact our rates have to do with the other assumptions that they're making, like the longevity of people's lives, and, salaries, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that go into that.
Okay.
The actuarial analysis.
Exactly. Yes, thank you.
Do I have any other questions from council? And currently, I don't have any cards on this item from the public. Is there anybody in the public, unless I missed one, that would like to speak on this issue? Fill out a yellow card and come to the front. And otherwise, I'll bring it back to council for comments? Okay, so I'll bring it back to council for comments. Anybody have any other comments they'd like to make?
Do we need to accept this or something?
Yes, please.
I just want to make, oh, do I need to press the button? Oh, no, I was just going to make a comment, so that by your estimate for moderate, we will have a almost about a 9% cumulative budget deficit by 2019-20, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Unless we can figure out a way to drive those lines on the top of that sheet.
That's right.
And if I may add, of course, every budget year, we're going to bring to you a balanced budget. And so, yes, if you add those percentages up, it may look like a 9% deficit, but the reality is every year, we're going to bring you a balanced budget. And so we won't be facing that kind of a cumulative impact.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree.
I just had a comment. Thank you for an excellent report. Appreciate it.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Councilmember Neihardt.
I would absolutely echo that, because the budget reports are getting clearer and more easily understood at every direction. So, praying for optimism to strike us all, I move that we accept the mid-year budget report.
Great. Long-term financial plan.
The long-term financial
Took action
plan.
on the mid-year last time.
Okay, long-term financial plan.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree, do you want to
Second.
give? Okay, and I would just like to also echo my thanks for a very clear and concise report that really benefits us all. We can, we have to have these numbers going forward. We know what it means to us. There are things that are going on, the Beach Boulevard project, other projects that as we move into the future, hopefully that'll grow into other things and strengthen our economy. That's what we're all hoping for. We have the economic development manager coming that could potentially, start turning things around, so we're not looking at just a bedroom community, but one where we really are thriving and our, high quality of life is changing. So things will change over time. We're going to have to make those things change over time in a sustainable way. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And with that, we should vote. And that passes 5-0. Now, where am I? I'll just go from here. Okay, the next item under consideration is item 8, excess ERAF funds for 2014-15 and options for investing these one-time funds. Staff report, please, and we'll need some clarity in terms of how to proceed because of a conflict with one of the council.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am Lori Tinfield, the City Manager, moving to a different position, putting on a different hat. As the Mayor mentioned, the actions on this report, there are 3 of them, and how we're going to present them to address a potential conflict with Councilmember Neihardt is to present the first 2 and the report portions that address those first 2, and then we'll take a break. And I believe the mayor is going to invite public comment at that time on those 2 items. And then Councilmember Neihardt will excuse herself, and we will continue with the 3rd point. And then I believe the mayor will ask for a public comment on the 3rd point after the presentation. So, please.
At this time, should we give any direction to council or the public in terms of what can be talked about and what can't be talked about during their deliberations or comments?
I understand that the mayor would prefer that the comments from the public on the first 2 items just be focused only on those 2. Okay. So establishing a fund and allocating funds to the Pacifica Resource Center and to the Pacifica Beach Coalition, and to refrain from discussion about Palmetto until we have the second part of the meeting. Am I echoing what you were thinking?
Yes, just making sure there's clarification because Councilmember Neihardt lives in close proximity to Palmetto. She can't comment on or deliberate in terms of those items.
Yes.
Okay.
And
thanks very much.
If I could, Madam Mayor, just give a sort of more technical, legal response to the issue that's presented to the council tonight with this report, and that is that Councilmember Neihardt does have a conflict of interest with regard to any discussion related to the Palmetto streetscape issue. So what we are allowed to do under the Political Reform Act is actually segregate out the different discussions and actions that the council may take. So what we are going to do tonight is we are going to segregate out that discussion that relates to items unrelated to the Palmetto streetscape issue. So we're going to ask that in this first part of the presentation and deliberation that the council refrain from discussing anything related to the Palmetto streetscape issue, which is item number 3 on your staff report. Then, after that deliberation and potential action on the first 2 items in the staff report, then the council will take a break. Councilmember Neihardt will then declare her conflict, will step down, and then the council will proceed to discuss the 3rd item, which is related specifically to the Palmetto streetscape. So we would be asking the public to comment in the first portion of the staff report solely on items related to the first and second subject, which is related to Fund 30 and the Pacifica Resource Center and Pacifica Beach Coalition item.
Great.
And then following that break, and then Councilmember Neihardt removing herself from the dais, then the council will then proceed with taking public comment and deliberating on items associated specifically with the Palmetto streetscape issue.
Great. Thank you both for providing that clarity.
So with that, I'll go ahead and begin. As we've talked,
I think Councilmember Neihardt has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is the vote one vote?
No, it's 2 votes.
Okay.
So as we've alluded, tonight, this report is bringing to council information about the excess ERAF funds that we've received just recently for 14-15, fiscal year 14-15. And as Lorenzo Hines noted, last year the council took action not to include those in the general fund, which was a somewhat new practice for us. So we're back before you to report on how much we've received and to ask for some direction related to some actions related to it. We do need you to establish a formal fund, Fund 30, for excess ERAF funds, and we also need you to give us direction about whether you'd like to fund the Pacifica Resource Center at the amount of $83,000 and the Pacifica Beach Coalition in the amount of $3,000, both amounts that we've funded in the past. So with that, I did a little bit of research about excess ERAF just to see what our history shows, and we've actually been receiving this, or this has been in a structure for about 15 years. However, in looking at what the trends have been, we actually have received 0 at one point, and that was in fiscal year 2003, 2004. And then the most we received was actually last year, and that was roughly $1.6 million. So there's a wide variation. And as you might remember from last year, I reported that starting in 2011, the county began telling cities and agencies not to depend on it in the general fund, that there was volatility associated with the amount that we may get, and at some point they do expect us to not receive it anymore. And so, again, last year the council heard that message, and going forward it's been not included in the general fund. The news that I'm sharing with you tonight about the amount that we will be receiving is $1,780,027.60. There's no strings attached to this money. The council can decide to use it however best meets the community's interest and needs. And as I mentioned, we are asking you to establish the fund as a holding place for it. As the council is aware, we have many needs. for funding. And you heard some a few minutes ago in terms of looking long-term at what's going on with our general fund budget. But we also have failing infrastructure. We have some, what I'm calling overspent accounts that I reported to you last year and that are captured in the budget, where we've spent more money than we're actually in the funds. And we also have a number of economic development-related projects that the council's been working on for some time, and there are many of those. I want to direct your attention to asking for direction related to funding the two community organizations. I mentioned that in previous years, the council has funded the Pacifica Resource Center in the amount of $83,000 and the Pacifica Beach Coalition in the amount of $3,000. And during the budget process last year, you all postponed making a decision about funding until we knew about our receipt of this funds. And so I'm bringing that back to you for you to give us direction. Should you wish to consider looking at those overspent accounting funds, I know you're very aware of them. It's roughly $4 million in several different places. Our disaster accounting fund is basically $1 million shortfall. And then in our capital improvement fund, there's both a loan between funds that fund owes, and then a balance that's also in the red. And so that together is roughly $3 million. You also know that I have hired a CPA to come in to take a look at all of our funds, because we have 25 in total, to have a set of outside eyes, ensure that there's nothing else that maybe we should be giving some more attention to. And I had expected that work to be done in the first quarter of this fiscal year, but as it's turned out, that's not been the case. And the person I've hired is still conducting the work, basically waiting for some information from city staff. And again, as I know you're well aware, the finance division has been limping along with temporary staff and vacancies, and so we're a little behind in what we've been able to prepare. So we're making progress on that. I want you to know that, and as soon as it's ready, we'll be bringing that to you to give you that information. So at this point, I think I will stop and ask if you would like to entertain the first two items in the action on the report, and/or take public comment.
I have a question. Councilmember Neihardt.
I just have a question, and Lori, you've heard me ask this question many times. So in that overspending, when you have the CPA look at it, I hope, because when we refinanced bonds for building, we took out $2 million for this site to be restored and made into a city hall. And that $2 million is, I assume it's part of this somewhere.
I'm afraid that we don't find a record of that. It may be that it's part of a bond issue that is pending to be sold, and we just have not found the documentation. I'm not sure how to respond to that.
Yeah. Okay. That was clearly in staff reports previously, back when I first got on council. So it was clearly there. And it was in newspaper articles, and it was promised publicly in many ways. So I know, but
I do understand.
That's very concerning, because that was a capital.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Councilmember Degree, or Mayor Pro Tem Degree, sorry.
You can skip me for now.
Okay. Councilmember O'Neill?
It wasn't a bond, it was a certificate of participation, I think. And I don't know if there are different files in City Hall, but it was a certificate of participation for refinancing the police station. So basically, I was going to make a motion and I don't see any staff motion here, so I'm going to kind of wing it.
Unless there's somebody that wants to talk for
I mean, oh,
Yeah,
right, there's public, that's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have comments, and
I think most of them are on Palmetto.
well, maybe,
okay.
maybe not. We have to ask, some of them doesn't state. And I had a question
I bet Anita Reeves wants to.
I was wondering, I know part of this presentation, one of the projects that we had considered in the past was referring to the trail, the purchase of the Colt properties, and I'd like to hear a little bit about that and what your thoughts are on the Colt property. And
Is that okay? Okay, very good. I'm happy to cover that.
Okay.
So this is a piece of land that we have long been trying to acquire, and last year we're finally successful. It's a 5-acre piece of land that will fill in this gap in the coastal trail and allow Pacifica's trails to connect with the Pedro Point Devil Slide Trail. The amount that we offered the property owner for it was $583,000. We've given him a deposit of $15,000, and that's bought us 9 months of time to figure out how to come up with the rest of the money. That 9 months of time expires June 9th. For an additional $5,000 deposit, we can engage or keep that agreement going for another 6 months, and that would bring us to December 9th. So the net result of that is we have until December 9th within the agreement that we've executed with the property owner to come up with the money to actually buy the property. There was a grant that the city received a few years ago that was to buy 2 properties. One of them is referred to as the Tronoff property, the other one is the Colt property. We were successful in purchasing the Tronoff property. Once we get the Colt property purchased, then we are eligible to receive these grant monies, and it's $360,000 toward the purchase. In doing some research around how we paid for the Tronoff property, I learned that we used our Park in Lieu fund, which is Fund 26, and it's one of the funds that's in the red. I didn't highlight it because it's relatively small compared to the other ones, but it's in the red by $116,000. And so as I wrote in the report, I would recommend to you that we use at least that much to bring that fund up to zero. And if we did that, that would leave $244,000 out of the TA grant to go toward buying the Colt property. And if we had that money, that would leave a balance of $339,000 that the city would need to come up with in order to complete that purchase. Now, we've submitted grant applications, 2 of them, one to the county for Measure A funding and one to another organization that I always just remember the initials, I believe it's HCD. Both of those, though, we're not going to know, we don't know now. The Measure A funds, the county is finalizing its process in terms of how it's going to consider opportunities. And the other grant, we understand that they're going to make a decision in June or July. So the good news is we'll know something about both of those, I think, by this summer. And then we'll know how much money we need to come up with in order to fund that sale or fund that purchase.
And so the conflict potentially is we will have to pay an additional $5,000 after June if we don't purchase that property now.
Yes.
There's a potential to getting additional grant funds.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, there's always the safety issue that we're constantly contending with the Highway 1. There's no shoulders there. There's blind curves. There was a very eloquent speaker that came. I don't want to comment right now, but anyway, I know it's a balance. But there's the potential that we could earmark some of those funds for the trail at this time.
For purchasing the property for the trail?
For purchasing the property.
Yes, and that's really what we're focused on. And my report, I did note that this is just the first step. Actually, building the trail would then require another effort and more money.
Right.
And we can bring back a report with more information on that when the time is right.
Right. But it would be difficult to attain any grant funds or anything on the building of the trail until we actually purchased.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Keener?
Yeah. So the $5,000 would be applied toward the purchase price of the trail, or the Colt property, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And just on the amounts here, we've got $15,000 plus plus 5,000 maybe, plus 360,000 from the Tronoff grant, right?
The TA, the Transportation Authority, yes.
For the,
For the two properties.
Yeah. So that's about 380,000, and the total price is 500,000?
583,000.
583, okay.
And just as a side note, all those numbers in the report for anybody who's interested in those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that leaves us about 200,000 short.
330.
Well, my estimate was 339,000, but of course that assumes we would put a portion into Fund 26 to bring it up to zero. That's an option for the council to consider.
I see. Right. Okay. Okay.
Is there any other questions from council? Oh, Councilmember O'Neill.
So Lori, you're advocating or recommending that we bring the in lieu park fund to zero, okay, which would be the 116,000, but isn't this is a park, basically, the Colt property, and why would you bring it to zero? Why couldn't that 116,000 be used as bringing it to zero, and we're just using the money from the in lieu park fees to buy park? Is in lieu park fees, are they to purchase or maintain parks?
Either, is my understanding.
Either.
There are development fees paid to provide parks to the community.
I mean, this is, I don't know, a policy decision from council, but like, if we wanted to, if you have an opportunity to bring some money, put money into some of those funds that have been, I don't know, that were used, if you put it in there, but then you withdraw it and use it for what it's for, wouldn't that count towards replenishing it? I mean, it's kind of like, you could sit there and say, wow, I got all this money in the fund, but the streets are not paved. It's kind of like buying a bottle of 50-year-old bourbon and not drinking it, you know? It's, you know what I mean? What I'm saying is basically you are replenishing the funds, but then you're using them for something current today.
Well, it also presumes that we're not going to continue to draw down funds into the red going into the future. So that's why we just plug that hole, and the rest of the money could, and again, it's a policy decision for you all, and we're not bringing that forward for you to make tonight, but it is a policy decision. I just thought it would make sense. The Tronoff property, we actually spent out of that fund $150,000 toward the purchase price and approximately $36,000 for appraisal and closing costs, et cetera. So it's to replenish just part of that, because that's part of what the 116,000 that were in the red in that fund went to pay for.
Councilmember Neihardt.
I think just for the, well, for the public and maybe even for my re-edification, when you're talking about a fund, could you say a little bit about what a fund is and when it gets below balance, where that comes from?
I mentioned that we have 25 funds, and they function as a whole. Each of the fund accounts are ways for us to track the money, and the reason why that they're segregated is because there are strings attached to most of those funds, so we have to spend them in a certain way. Now, it's not unusual for cities to spend monies in advance knowing that they're going to get replenished. And the in lieu funds are one of those types of funds. You might overspend one of those knowing you're going to have development come in and be able to replenish it. And in this case, that is somewhat what we did, is we went ahead and bought the Tronoff property and fronted money out of that fund and allowed that fund to go into the negative. Perhaps presuming that we would then have development to fill in the hole that we've left. That hasn't happened to date. And again, it would just be my recommendation, it would certainly be up to the council as to how you wanted to treat that fund.
So it comes out of another fund, it comes out of the general fund?
Yeah, the total amount of funds is something around $71 million. And so taking some from one fund, it just gets covered by the balance from another fund. And so we're allowing a fund to draw down, but it's being covered. It's like having a checking account, and you're writing checks, and you know where those checks are going and what you're trying to accomplish. The bank doesn't care what you're doing with the money. So it's a single account, say, to the bank, but to you, you've got different accounts to account for the money properly. And that's how these function. That's why we've been able to front money, is because in total, we have plenty, but again, it has those strings attached to it.
I have a question. I have a question. If we purchase the trail, as we, I think, intend to do, because we have the option to buy the land, where are we going to get the money to buy that trail from? Are we going to use the park and lieu?
No, it had always been discussed that we would return to this source of money for purchasing the trail.
Okay.
But that was after we exhausted opportunities for grants.
Okay. Go ahead.
One more question. You just kind of slid that in there, so I wanted to come back to it. 71 million?
Yes.
You said that. That includes, just so nobody gets any...
Yeah.
It includes
all
wastewater.
excited. Yeah, that includes
everything.
like the Davies
Yes.
money that we don't spend the principal, we spend only the interest on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
very
it's
good.
all of those
I just want to
funds.
make sure everybody's clear that it's not all usable. Because I got excited for a minute.
It's all delineated, by the way, in the budget. All the accounts there, the definitions of the accounts, and you'll see the total.
Well, it includes the sewer fund also.
It does.
Yeah.
There you go.
And it would be beneficial if we could utilize some of the money that we borrow to buy the property to pay it back at this time, because that is our intent overall, is making sure that all that money goes to the proper fund.
That is my understanding.
Actually.
And that would be certainly what I would
And you
recommend.
really can't commingle the wastewater fund. That's totally a separate business.
Right.
But it's part of that 71 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Okay, I'm going to go out to the public now, and this is a little complicated because not everybody said if they were going to be discussing Palmetto. So I'm asking anybody who has a card, if you're going to be speaking on Palmetto at all, then just wait till the next discussion, which will happen after Councilmember Nyhart votes on this and then has
Leaves
to
the building.
leave. So I'm going to ask your name, and if, just raise your hand if you'd like to speak now. David Leal?
Okay.
No? Is he here?
Yeah, he said Palmetto.
Oh, okay, Palmetto, thank you. Kathleen Salvia? Joyce Robison? Okay. Diane Hart? Okay. Kathy Johnson? Julie Lansell?
I have two parts, so I do have something on the first.
Okay. Okay, well, you could come up and...
Thank you, Julie Lansell. Yeah, I'm just, I really want to talk briefly about the trail project. This property, the Colt property, is really the key link now and the last link in the California Coastal Trail, Devil's Slide Trail, a wonderful recreational asset for our community and on the San Mateo coast. I don't know how many folks from the public have been following it. Certainly everyone's been seeing, some of us have gone up and driven up to the Devil's Slide Trail, or the Devil's Slide Park up at the top that they built near the tunnel. But what they may not realize is that almost the entire trail coming down to Pacifica from that parking area is in place. And except for a couple of small pieces, one of which has already been purchased, and the other is the Colt property, which is in the process and in kind of a contractual basis right now, which is really limited. I mean, the time frame seems rather short. And it's such a, it's really a significant property, and really, really important for Pacifica. And I'm going to just say that the important thing to keep in mind is that the link that the Colt property provides will provide safe access for walkers and cyclists approaching from southern Pacifica. It'll eliminate forever the risk currently posed by walkers and cyclists who are confused and want to get up to the top from Pedro Point and set out walking or riding their bikes up Highway 1. It's creating a terrible hazard. We have been given a unique opportunity to greatly improve the access to this beautiful and stunning recreational asset, which I think many Pacificans have not even visited yet because of the access issue, but it's an extraordinary, there's acres, over 400 acres up there with beautiful trails, and then you can come down right to the Devil's Slide. It's a fantastic asset to have an access point from Pacifica. It's of commercial importance for the businesses at Pedro Point Shopping Center and Lindemar Shopping Center, and as well as it'll be just a tremendous recreational gem for Pacifica. So I strongly encourage you to consider the funding of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Cindy Abbott? And Courtney Conlon? And Trish Moran? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I don't have any other cards on this particular issue, so I'm going to bring it back to council. Councilmember Neihardt.
Well, I just wanted to say that first and foremost, the Resource Center and the Beach Coalition were the two things that we held back with the event of getting the ERAF and being good to our word. I'd like to move that we fund those.
Yeah, and I have a second from Mayor Pro Tem.
Fund what do we find?
The Resource Center and the Beach Coalition.
That's number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have a second with Sue Degree. Okay, and now we're going to go back to this discussion about establishing the Fund 30. So,
do you want to vote on that?
Yeah, there's a
we're
motion
going to vote
on the floor.
on those two separately. All right, sorry about that. Okay, go ahead and vote. And that passes 5-0. Yay, the easy one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In terms of the fund, I think you need a place to place the money. And that makes a certain amount of sense to me. I want to make a comment about one thing, because I get really close to crossing over here, and I don't want to cross over. I want to pack up and leave so nobody can. But I wanted to address the issue of the trail. And I really appreciate the very last picture in the packet, because I personally committed to working with the Land Trust and with the city and with every single funding source that I can think of that we could potentially move this forward into a priority conservation area. I believe Christian is working on that in our planning department. Those applications are due in May. We have other grants out to fund that. I think waiting to see makes sense about what we have come in, because if we fund it, there's not much reason for them to give us the grants, and we really kind of need those grants going forward. But I particularly wanted to stress that I love that last picture, because that's what I've been looking for in our grant application process. I think that Lori, I've certainly said this to you, our city manager, when the kind of finishing touches for us, when I look at grants that come to the Transportation Authority, that come to the City and County Association of Governments, BPAC, which is a subcommittee of CCAG, I look at those, and usually the flush out is that they sit inside of another project, and they make a bigger picture, a bigger vision. And we're often presenting things kind of in isolation. And so your plans, just as moving forward of getting everybody together that's on projects, I mean, I'm kind of letting everybody know what, is going on, but getting all the departments together so everybody's on the same page, so you talk about a project from start to finish, what is needed to have happen, and we develop a strategy for application, so we don't compete with the land trust, we don't step on our feet in other arenas, that we play the smart politics. I think those things will bear real fruit, and I'm very happy with that. So making a fund to put this in, I think is significant, and I'm happy to move to do that. Now, what you do and how much, that you all have to talk about without me.
Okay, thank you.
So I make a motion that we do the fund.
Okay. Councilmember O'Neill, are you going to?
Second.
Okay, is that what you wanted to, your comment as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I just had a question. And one of my considerations and my concerns is this trail has been going, and very happy about the other vote that was done. That's, wonderful, and, goes without even a debate tonight, which is great. But the thing I'm concerned about is moving forward, that we've been working on this trail for so many years, and it just frustrates me a little bit, I think, that it's not even being earmarked for the trail. We're not discussing the trail. We're just saying, let's put it in this other fund. And so I don't want to lose it. I don't want anything to happen. I understand the concern about a grant, but also the other thing that happens over time is, the cost of building, of constructing a road goes up 3% minimum a year. You were saying even more than that. So we keep putting things off, and things take so much longer. So I really am just saying that this is important to me, that we get this done. I'd like to earmark money for when we know what our bottom dollar is, when we know how much we're going to owe, when everything's finalized. I'd like to be able to put some ERAF funds towards the purchase of the trail before December, when we can lose it very easily. This is not just a done deal. So that's just my 2 cents in terms of how I feel about this. I'd like to see it earmarked for a trail eventually, before the end of this agreement, and that's all I have to say. Councilmember Keener.
Yeah. I think what Lori has laid out with the idea of waiting for the grants is good. I don't think anybody has any intention of letting that date in December slide by. I think we'll find a way to fund it before then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree?
To reiterate, I remember last year, the recommendation was that should the ERAF monies be available at a certain time, we could consider using them for the Resource Center and the Beach Boulevard, not Beach Boulevard.
Beach Coalition?
Beach Coalition. So isn't that similar to what the mayor is saying? We didn't make any formal.
No, so if I can answer, I'm just saying that we had already have the option to buy the land. We put money towards that. We've been working very long on the purchase of the trail, and I want to make sure we only have till December to do that. There's other, people involved. I just want to make sure that that gets done. And
that's what I was saying, that it's easy just to call it back up, right?
Yes, it is.
Am I understanding that correctly?
And really what I was thinking, and maybe I just wasn't as direct about this, is once we hear back from the grants, we can report to you what the resolution is, whether we get some money or not, and then bring to you a recommendation to allocate this money toward that project. It's very clear to all of staff that this is a high priority project for the council.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know who, I don't know which way, Councilmember O'Neill.
I believe there's a motion on the floor, and all the motion is to open up, is to put the money into a fund. I think the issue of whether or not it's being used for Palmetto Park or whatever is part of the next discussion. So I kind of like.
Except that I can talk about the trail, I can't talk about the other.
Okay.
That's why I added talking about it.
Okay, I just want to be sure there is a motion on the floor, so.
Yes. But I was going to add the same thing as Councilmember Degree, except I was going to go one step further, that because of how that we've laid out this strategy to acquire the money, I think that it's very clear that if that doesn't happen, then we can move forward in another arena. You know, we all said that, and we voted on transferring this entire package to the county. And I love seeing, again, I'm going to stress that last picture because it puts it in perspective. We are not coming to the county empty-handed. We're coming with some beautiful, incredibly gorgeous view property, and we're asking for help with building the actual trail, which will then be up to them to maintain because it'll be part of the total package. So with the land trust and moving forward, everybody recognizes that we have to have the Colt property. So we have this agreement, move forward on this agreement, and certainly I would be supportive of using money toward that.
Right.
Okay. But I think we can get the 339 other places. I'm hopeful.
Okay, let's see. No other comments? Okay, yeah. Okay, we're ready to vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay. Now we're going to
And now, I just want to make a statement that my property overlaps the street in question that you're about to talk about within my 500-foot radius. So I think it comes even in a little bit into this property. So it definitely includes Palmetto. So I need to exit the room to recuse myself from this item. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, and good night, Councilmember Neihart.
Nothing's going to happen.
Good night.
Okay, and with that, we are going on to excess ERAF funds for 2014, 2015, and options for investing these one-time funds, Part 2, which is direct staff to work with the Economic Development Committee to establish a process for updating the Palmetto Streetscape project that could include holding public meetings and refining the project phases to be within the city's funding ability, and return to council with the proposal to move the project forward. Staff report, please.
Thank you. To help the council have a good discussion, I asked Public Works Director Van Ocampo to put together a presentation to refresh your memories about what this even is. I learned an interesting fact today, and that is we started this process in 2008. That's a long time ago. And the folks who were involved at that time may or may not be still involved, may or may not recollect what we've done, which is really the reason, the recommendation for asking the Economic Development Committee to engage in some more public activity related to the project. And that is really all that's before you tonight. Certainly if you want to give us other direction, we could take that back, but that really is all that's before you tonight. So I think I will turn this over to Van and be back up here to answer some questions.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. As you all know, the Palmetto Streetscape project actually encompasses 10 blocks of Palmetto Avenue from Paloma to the north all the way to Clarendon to the south. This is the exact same area where PG&E recently completed its utility undergrounding project. The purpose of a streetscape project is to encourage the public to use alternate forms of transportation, either by biking or by walking, and to add vibrance to the community and local economy. The improvements that are going to be installed as part of the streetscape project includes wider sidewalks, bulb outs, enhanced pedestrian crosswalks. Those improvements add safety factor, while the landscaping, the benches, the plaza, the drinking fountains, they enhance the attractiveness of the area. So taking a typical block, let's say the block between Santa Maria and Salada, sorry. This is how the existing street configuration look like. If you'll notice, the sidewalks are very narrow. They're an average of 4 feet. And not only that, crossing at the intersection, although it's already at the intersection, is a little bit challenging, and particularly because of the width of Palmetto Avenue. And so the more time that the pedestrian spends crossing the street, increases the hazard as, with the vehicles that are running the road. So what we did was we superimposed the Palmetto Streetscape project onto the same block, and as you can see, there's a huge difference, particularly that you have now wider sidewalks. The curb line is actually pushed towards the middle of the road. Your sidewalk has increased from an average of 4 to an average of 8 feet. And you also have bulb outs that are constructed at the intersection. The presence of the bulb outs actually decreases the width of the street, making it safer for the pedestrians to cross. In addition, you do have, curb ramps that are at the corner. And in addition to that, you also have enhanced crosswalk pavement markings, making it even more visible to the motorists that are on Palmetto Avenue. Another thing is that if you narrow the street, the motorists tend to travel at a slower speed, as we all know. Also included in the improvements are plazas, mid-block plazas, similar to what you have, as what you can see here. There will also be bollards, bollards at the intersections, but that would be on a separate phase. So the Palmetto Streetscape project actually was originally divided into 3 phases, and that is because of availability of funding. However, with the robust economy, staff have observed a big increase in construction costs. This led to us staff further examining the items that are included in the first phase and identifying the items that must be immediately constructed and ones that can be installed at a later time. So we labeled the the ones that needs to be installed right away as Phase 1A, and the ones that can be added later on as Phase 1B. So as part of the first phase, or Phase 1A, it included the concrete sidewalks being constructed. They are not colored, because if you were to add color to the concrete, that's an additional cost. The bulb outs at the corner and the mid-block plaza will still be constructed, and that's because you want to establish the alignment of the curb and the gutter. And then you have also the improved crosswalk markings, the handicap ramps, and the less visible but as important underground facilities, which is your, your storm drains, your storm water drain system, as well as the irrigation for future landscaping. Part of the project also is to install the decorative streetlights that we now have inventory of. That was purchased through a ARRA grant. We have that in storage. However, as part of Phase 1A is to lay the electrical so you can power these lights as you install them. The total estimated cost for Phase 1A, including construction management and contingency, is about $2.5 million. Looking at the items that can be installed later after Phase 1A, we have the electrical amenities. The electrical amenities involve, if you would recall, the thought is that if we can put those outlets at the streetlight poles, we will it will allow us to install decorative lights during the holiday season. So those are the amenities that we're going to install. The bollards at the intersections and also within the streets, because you have bollards at the intersections and you also have bollards within the streets that protects the bike racks. They can be installed because they're above ground, as well as the trash and recycling receptacles. Now, this is estimated to cost about $630,000. For Phase 2, these are the Phase 2 items are the ones that actually are has functionality enhances the functionality as well as the aesthetics, and that's where the benches and the planters, as well as the overlay for the street. So the entire Palmetto Avenue from Paloma all the way to Clarendon will receive a new overlay. This phase is estimated to cost about $550,000. Oh, sorry. For Phase 3, that will include the arc. That's the one that you see at the top of the page there. There are 2 arcs that we are intending to install. One at the northern end in Paloma, and the one at the southern end, which is at Clarendon. There are also going to be decorative signage at the base of or near the support for the arc, and you will also have water fountains, both for pedestrians as well as the pets, and other above ground amenities like the kiosk and all those stuff. The price tag for Phase 3 is $1.2 million. Just to recap, the total estimated cost for the entire project, including all phases, is estimated at $4.9 million. In terms of grant funding, we have a grant for $1 million. This is from the City-County Association of Government, and that is the One Bay Area Grant. It's a federal grant which requires a local match of 11.47%. Another thing about the grant is that it has to be, the work must start by December of 2016. Next step. Lori, you want to take that?
And that brings us to the recommendation that's in the staff report. And basically, this is the recommendation because regardless of whether we have funding today or we have funding in the future, these would be the steps we would want to take. It has been so long since the public has really become familiar with this project that we would want to do some kind of public engagement around the project. And directing that work to happen with the Economic Development Committee is the natural tie-in. That's definitely their purview. The thought would be sharing the cost information with the community and perhaps buying ourselves a little more time to see what happens with the Colt property and grants in particular. We could then come back to the council with a proposal and with the ability to fund perhaps Phase 1A of the project and get it started. I'd also like to just note that cities do this kind of infrastructure investment in order to then stimulate private investment. And that means upgrades to buildings, upgrades to facades, and also turning it into a site that's more attractive for different kinds of business that we hope to go there. So it's a very common strategy to take funds and invest them in this way. So I think with that, I'll be happy to answer questions, as is Van and Ray.
Great. Thank you. Questions from council? Councilmember Keener?
Yeah. I think this is for Van. I just drove down Palmetto this evening, and I noticed that the cable lines are not undergrounded. And furthermore, there's a 3-wire setup that I think is probably for streetlights and that's not undergrounded either. Will the streetlights be undergrounded, and what's the deal with the cable?
As part of this project, the streetlights will be underground. Right now, what we did was we asked PG&E to maintain the wooden poles and the streetlights and have that string just to make sure that there's light for Palmetto Avenue. Once this project is, at least the phase of the project that includes the streetlight, which is phase 1A, is completed, the streetlights will now be the decorative lights, similar to what's in the plans that we, similar to the ones that we have at the pier right now. It's actually the same looking.
And what about the cables?
Well, with regards to the cable, all of the underground facilities, which is the installation of the conduits, both for PG&E, for PG&E, AT&T, and Comcast, have all been installed. So if it's just a matter of hooking up the property owners, then that would be the cable company just doing that. As far as all of the burying of conduits, they're all done.
Okay.
Councilmember O'Neill?
So if we were to give you, let's say we give you a go-ahead tonight, okay, just what would be the time frame for you to do an RFP and move forward? I mean, would you be starting, you think you'd start in July, August, or?
Because there is grant funding involved, what we have to do is check with Caltrans, and what you do is you ask for what they call authority to proceed, which is an E76. Right now, the grant fund is available for 2016, so which means that within the calendar year of 2016 is when you can start spending that money of $1 million. But we do have to go through the process with Caltrans. We have already started that. We had a field review with Caltrans, and they have even approved the environmental exemption for this particular project.
Caltrans?
The federal funds are, all federal funds goes through Caltrans for administering. Caltrans, as the agency, administers the federal funds.
Okay, so basically, what I'm hearing you saying, if I'm hearing this correctly, is if we said go ahead today, we're not talking about building anything or actually shovel in the dirt until February next year?
Pretty much, because what we can do is we can ask Caltrans if they can advance the money, but in terms of timeline, you have 2016 as the year that this is supposed to roll out.
And from what I gather in the previous discussions, we're going to know about the other grants for Colt property like July
Yes.
or August of this year, correct?
That's correct. But could I just clarify Councilmember O'Neill's question, Van? If we did have the money in hand, couldn't we go ahead and solicit bids and then basically count on the Caltrans portion in 2016? But if we had the rest, could we also start the project before then?
The grant fund from Caltrans, the one Bay Area grant, can be used for any of the phases that we have.
Right.
So if we have the money to do the phase one, because this is a $4.5 million, you can actually start phase one now and then use the money that Caltrans has for the next phase. It really, it's up to us. If we have the money right now, we can advertise the project and proceed with it.
So just to clarify, it's the grant that's not available until 2016. If we had other funding, we could start sooner.
Yeah.
So then, all right, we have 1.7 in ERAF. If we say go ahead and do it tonight, then you would just start doing the RFP, and we could conceivably start the renovations in August or something?
I would rather, if you want to give us that direction, to come back to you with a more complete plan and a timeline. But we could do that very quickly. We could do that at your next meeting.
Okay, no, I'm just asking, just be sure I understand how the process works. Okay. But is that correct? That you would be able to submit an RFP out to the public and you have to publish it 90 days or whatever?
Councilmember O'Neill, the amount of money that we need for phase 1A is 2.5 million. Okay, if you have 1.7 million only for excess ERAF for this project, then you're still short by 800,000.
Right.
Now that 800,000, I'm presuming that you would need the OBAG money to pay for that.
Right.
So, and again, in order for us to do that, we have to go through the process with Caltrans securing that what you call authorization to proceed, or E76.
Okay. So we are tied into the 2016.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree?
I noticed that we talked about water in the plan. So do we have access to recycle water? Because we're in a drought. I don't think we're going to be getting out of a drought too soon. So talk about landscaping and also fountains.
Okay. The fountains that we have two fountains. The drink fountain, that has to be potable water, right?
Okay.
Okay. And because that also is not just for the pedestrians, but also for the pets, because the fountain itself has nozzles at the top and also nozzles at the bottom for a pet to drink from. Okay. Now, with regards to the use of recycled water, in talking to the water district, they have service all the way to the golf course, by Clarendon. They have service up to that point. The question that we have with regards to that is the permit that they have with regards to recycled water, whether it's rated for human contact. Because if you are going to spray it and then it violates the permit because of the human contact, that would be a violation of the permit. However, we're working closely with them in making sure that because the quality of the water that our treatment plant produces is actually of high level, high quality, that it should not be restricted from having that. So what I'm getting at is we will work tirelessly to be able to use recycled water for the purpose of irrigation.
Okay, thank you. What was the other thing? So waiting a little bit, I think, is not a bad idea, because I don't think we're ready. Will give us more time to think about the substance of what the street is going to consist of, like the types of businesses. Do you foresee that? I mean, I'm looking at planning rather than just building.
Right.
So we know what type of buildings we're looking for, what type of businesses we expect to have, what kind of buildings they would need.
Do you want to answer that, Van? Go ahead.
Yeah. In terms of constructability, being, we're in the construction field, obviously there's an advantage if you bunch 2 or 3 phases together. You have the mobilization cost, even just the advertising cost. There's always that economy of scale. So if you were to ask me for my suggestion, the more that I can do within a single contract, the better for me, or for the city in that case, because of the economy of scale, like what I said.
Right, but does that answer my question about being prepared for the types of businesses we're going to outreach for, and, what's compatible, what do we need to become that the assistant manager was talking about, what works for us? That's what I'm getting at. And also, do you foresee the new staff member on economic development spending a certain amount of time on this?
I'll answer your second question first. I do. They're going to have a long list of things to start on. But yes, this is something, depending on where we are with funding and a start date, that they would definitely pay attention to. The answer to your question, I think, part of it has to do with there's a document that the city created. It's still in draft form, but it's guidelines and a vision statement for Palmetto. And so in that document, I believe it articulates some of the ideas that the city had for what Palmetto could look like, the types of businesses that could be there. Now, having some expertise from the economic development manager about which properties might fit which types of purposes is something we will add into the mix as we're looking around. Some examples, though, there are some houses, for example, along Palmetto that would be well suited to be converted into restaurants. And some other activities. There's some pieces of dirt there that I understand have been purchased, and there's some planning going on about how to use those pieces of dirt to fulfill the vision. So I think there's been a lot of work done by you all and by city staff to already articulate that, and we'll go back to that and begin to implement that.
So we have those documents. Good.
Yes, I have that document.
Thank you.
That's it. Councilmember Keener?
Yeah, one more question for Van. And this concerns the storm sewers. And so you've got storm sewers in the plan. And what do we have in terms of existing storm sewers? Anything?
Currently, there is a storm drain system on Palmetto Avenue. And what we're doing is making sure that even the roof leaders are collected and filtered in. In fact, one of the functions of the 3 wells that are part of this project is to use that as a filtration system. We're also putting filters at the collection point, which is mostly at 3 or 4 spots within the street itself. One of the sheets that shows the details actually include the filtration system for that.
And so you're going to filter the runoff from the roofs, is that right?
From the gutters, from the streets.
Oh, okay. And so will that water have to go to the sewage treatment plant?
No, sir. It will actually discharge at that outfall that we have on Clarendon at the end.
Yeah, okay.
On-site.
And other outfalls, like we have one here at Montecito as well.
Okay, can I, okay, go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem
Just want to confirm, we do have the lights already there in storage, right?
Yes, they are. Actually, they're in the storage in this facility.
Thank you.
I just had a couple questions. So previously, the work had started, as you mentioned, and I know the neighbors, the people that live in Palmetto, have already, I think, they've been a little frustrated that, they had to go through some hardships during the construction period of this construction. Is that true? So I have a concern just about, I want to make sure that they are getting what they deserve. They've been waiting a very long time for this project. So when the project was active, when we were busy doing this project, had the money for the grant ever been requested at that time? Because I know before it seemed like it was set to be going in 2014 or 20.
Right. The answer to your question is no, actually. It was only, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2 to 3 years back that we applied for the Transportation for Livable Community grants as part of the One Bay Area grant that we are able to secure the $1 million.
Okay, great. And in terms of the funding for this, if we put $1.5 million into this project, then we're basically putting $5 million, we're paying off $1.5 million out of the $2.2 million that was transferred out of Fund 9. And that's something I just want to clarify. Wasn't the money originally put in Fund 9 and that money was no longer in there? It was put into the capital improvement project?
I'm not sure I'm tracking. Are you talking about the loan?
Yeah. I'm talking about the $4 million, and out of that, there was money that was believed to have been in a Fund 9, that no longer was in there, and that's why we kind of had to put a stop to any construction that was going on.
Well, in Fund 9, there were 2 things going. Well, there was a loan from Fund 9 to Fund 22.
Right.
And that was the $2.2 million, and that occurred back in 2003. I don't know of any other monies that were supposed to be in Fund 9 that are not there, but I'll defer to Van if something else comes to his mind.
I'm not insinuating that there is. I'm just saying that money, I thought that was the money that was intended to pay for Palmetto, but that money was missing. And so, am I incorrect?
As Lori had pointed out, the loan was done in 2003, and I don't believe we have the Palmetto Streetscape project yet at that time.
Yeah.
It was for other it's for other projects.
By the way, we are going to figure out, based on the information available to us, what comprises all these numbers. But I can share with you that what has been suggested to me, given the timing, that perhaps that loan was to cover the police station, because it came online roughly that same time. But we're going to dig into that.
I don't mean to, I'm not trying to get to the bottom of that tonight. We have enough to do, and we have to hear from a lot of people. But I am just, thinking if this project would also, by spending money on the Palmetto project, you are kind of replacing money that was set aside at one point for this Palmetto project. I thought that was...
I don't see any fund earmarked for Palmetto. I understand what Councilmember Neihardt has said and what probably some of you may remember. I'm not finding documentation of that.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. And let's see what other, oh, and then I just wanted to bring up the fact that we do have some projects like Beach Boulevard coming up that might, help continue to pay for elements of this project going forward, and so that's a very positive thing going forward. And my concern, of course, is just making sure that we do complete this project and we don't lose the $1 million grant funding that was given to us by, by CCAG.
Yes. Well, and you mentioned the Beach Boulevard potential sale proceeds, and you're right, that will be up to the council to direct that money when it becomes available. In addition, a year from now, I don't know how much, but we are likely to get something from excess ERAF again, and so that would be some other money that currently is not earmarked.
Right, and so there is the potential that we can earmark this money for Palmetto, as I was speaking of, in the trail, and proceed with the idea of having public hearings and people hearing about it, get the design phase going, and then proceed when we get the money from, whether it's the Beach Boulevard or ERAF or whatever it is.
Yes. If there was enough in ERAF to cover both of those costs, I would be up here recommending that we do that. The challenge is there's not enough in the excess ERAF to do both purchase the Colt property at the $339,000 and allocate 1.5 toward starting Palmetto.
Right, but since it's not shovel-ready at this point, there's money to get started in phase one, to get our plans together, and then by the time the sale of Beach Boulevard or next year's ERAF, we would have the complete money to ensure that we can finish phase one.
Yes, that is what we'd be bringing back to you based on your comments tonight and previous.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, and I know the people in the audience have been waiting quite a long time to speak, so I'm going to have you come up now. The first speaker is David Leal.
Hello, City Council and City staff. My name is David Leal. I'm a resident on Palmetto Avenue, right down the street. And I'm here tonight to ask that we approve the Excess Education Augmentation Revenue Funds, ERAF, for the first phase of the Palmetto Streetscape project. Much work, as we've just been discussing, has already been done on this project, and it's been 7 years with very to little action. And the local residents, as well as the businesses, have been putting up with it for about 7 years. Just yesterday, I walked from Clarendon around the Tot Lot all the way up to Manor. I went shopping with my son. I have a 2-month-old. And you'd be amazed, or maybe not, as to how little curb cutouts you have for disabled accessibility, stroller accessibility, and just markings that call out the intersections. Even where there are curb cutouts, they're almost a fifth down the block, and that's behind where the car stops, so it's like you're coming out in the middle of the street between cars almost, and they're very, very dangerous. And let's just say it was very bumpy for him going up and down the sidewalks. But this isn't about me or him. This is about the visitors that come to our area, the businesses who have already taken risks to plant themselves in Pacifica and have made that investment in this community. And now it's time for us to make that investment in them. In order for these businesses, they're not destination businesses right now. Beach Boulevard might be, but they rely on foot traffic, and we need to make it easy for people to walk around here. Right now, the infrastructure doesn't do that. And the more I hear about delays, it's like, when are we going to finally push this forward? So while I request that we move forward with the funding for this, I request that we don't send it to the committee. It's going to hold more public hearings. Tonight's a public hearing, and you're hearing me speak. I'm the public. We don't need more of these meetings to delay the funding. Let's push it forward. The public's asking to move forward. Our community is chomping at the bit to thrive. If you're looking for a competitive advantage, let's take Half Moon Bay, for example. We're a lot closer to San Francisco than Half Moon Bay, and homes are selling at a median rate of $1.1 million. People have money to spend. Even Daly City, homes are up. They don't have beaches in Daly City. People want to go to the beaches. We have a beach right across the street. Let's focus on the area around here, Lindemar, and we'll get that destination for people to come to. But we need to make the investment now because, as we saw in the financial report, we're at a 9% in a couple years deficit. We need to make the investments now. It's not going to happen overnight. So we need to make the investments now to get that revenue.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Our next speaker is Kathleen Salvia, followed by Joyce Robinson. Okay.
I'm Kathleen Salvia, Executive Director of Sanchez Arts Center. Might be putting the cart before the horse a little bit here, but I just wanted to let you know that we're very excited about the whole Palmetto project. I'd like to see some space made for public art, and there are certainly grants available for partnerships between arts organizations and governmental entities that support community and economic development and art projects. California Arts Council has one, National Endowment for the Arts has one, and Sanchez Arts Center would be really happy to work with whoever ends up, wherever this project goes, whoever's in charge. We'd be honored to try and figure out a way to work together and help with that if you would consider it. So,
Thank you for those comments. Diane Hart, followed by Kathy Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be very brief. I'm Diane Hart, and I'm a board member of the FogFest Organizing Group, and I support moving ahead with allocating ERAF monies for the streetscape improvements to Palmetto Avenue, which is the home of the Pacifica FogFest. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Johnson, yeah.
Hi, I'd just like to thank the council for all of their hard work. I'd like to ask the council to move forward with the Palmetto Streetscape project, and if the Economic Development Committee does get involved, to help establish the process, I'd like to ask that they not hold up the project by holding public meetings, because that's what we're here for tonight, to talk about, I think. And the funding requires construction start by December 2016. Also, I hope council jumps on the opportunity for ERAF funding to help complete Phase 1, which I believe will help all the wonderful businesses on Palmetto Avenue, as well as revenue for Pacifica. I'm the coordinator for the Pacific Coast Fog Fest. I talk to the merchants down there. You know, every year they say, yeah, well, you know, it's going to get done this year, and oh, it's happening, and you know, they see it coming, and then, you know, nothing happens. So I'm just here as an advocate, and been a resident here for 50 years, and I'd love to see that beautiful Palmetto streetscape finished. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Julie Lansell, followed by Cindy Abbott.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was actually on the council when we set up the committee to begin to work on developing a streetscape plan for Palmetto. And I think the city manager allocated $25,000 to pay for a consultant who really earned his money with that design and that process. I think that, you know, I think it's important to review, you know, the previous draft plan, but I tend to agree with the other speakers about going back out into a large process. I think there was a big process already. It was a lot went into that, the development of that plan. And so But then I have my things to add to it that I saw missing in it. One had to do with the signage. There wasn't anything that came out about signs. And right now, the current sign ordinance in Pacifica only allows signs to be flat on the front of the buildings. And you see in the towns that are really successful, they have the signs, you have the option, flat and also hanging signs, so people can see the businesses as they go by. So that would be one thing. I really appreciated the director of the Sanchez Art Center coming forward just now and offering to help with getting grants for some kind of public art component. I think we do have a large artist community, and I think that's just a great offer. So I'm just excited to see this moving forward. And also, and this is just a kind of a pet peeve that I'm bringing up, and I don't know if anyone feels the same way, and I'm not sure if there's a better technology now for ramps, the street ramps that go down, the handicap ramps, because for some reason, over the last few years, that design came along with the little bubbles on it, that they're kind of yellow plastic, and those are extremely slippery in the rain, and and for children who have to go over those in strollers, I think they got they get shaken up pretty good, because those things are very, very bumpy. So I know that may seem silly, but if there's an alternative, I would encourage looking at that. So thank you very much for moving ahead on this, and I look forward to seeing it when it happens.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So next speaker is Cindy Abbott, followed by Courtney Conlon.
Good evening, council members, staff, and public. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Palmetto Avenue. It's one that has come up for many, many years. And as an 18-year resident of West Sharp Park, an area that I love and doesn't always get the kudos and excitement that it deserves here in Pacifica, because we're really the place where you can walk right to the ocean and where you should be able to walk right over to a great area of local shops and restaurants and things. And we do have some establishments that have been there for a long time, but as people have talked about, those establishments have been having a much harder time to keep going. And over the years, a number of businesses have gone out of business, and they have not been replaced. So it really is a problem in the neighborhood, one that really should be taken care of. And as we talked about that, the chart and where revenues was going to be falling down below expenses here in the times in the years ahead, if we don't start with these infrastructure projects now, we're going to be delaying and making that more of a problem when we get out to 2017. And I look at starting phase one as really being that infrastructure improvements, which is really a public works project. We're using it for economic development, but these are just infrastructure things that need to be done in the area to slow down traffic. There are kids in the neighborhood. There would be more out on the street maybe if it was a little bit safer, to make crossing a lot easier and to start drawing more people up to the area. But I really think it does need to be done now. I appreciate the work very much that the Economic Development Committee does and their focus on the city, but this really was a long process of a lot of people involved in talking how to create this plan and to get it as far along as it is. So I, too, would be reluctant to see it move back to a large forum because it has been discussed many times over the years. Now, phase two and phase three, I think, is something which has more design elements that is maybe a little bit dated. We could be looking at things more in relation to be environmentally sustainable out there in the streetscaping and the different features that are out there. But I don't think that re-looking at those phases 2 and 3 should preclude us from starting with phase 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Courtney Conlon, followed by, is Trish still here? Oh, thank you, Trish.
Okay.
You're up.
So again, good evening, Honorable Mayor Irvin and members of City Council. My name is Courtney Conlon, and I am a 38-year resident of Pacifica. However, tonight I am here representing Pete and Cheryl Yos, proud owners of Dial Glass and Window Company for the past 32 years, and their business is right in the heart of the Palmetto Avenue project, 1704 Palmetto to be exact. They have written a letter and copied each of you asking for your consideration and collective support in using the excess some of the excess ERAF monies to help fund the second phase of the Palmetto Avenue repairs and improvements. And for the record, again, I am here tonight representing the Yos so that their voices are heard loud and clear and will go on record as such for council to vote in favor of using these funds in continuing to bring safety and beautification to Palmetto Avenue. So I'm going to read part of their letter because I think it's very important. They spent time really wordsmithing it. I am writing this letter in support of funding the second phase of Palmetto Avenue repairs and improvements. My understanding is that you will be voting tonight on the available ERAF monies that can continue Palmetto Street construction. We read the item placed on the agenda and I'm very concerned as it appears staff is trying to delay the project. What is there to delay? We have put a small fortune in our building over the past several years. As part of the Palmetto Merchants Association that has been involved in providing feedback in planning the streetscape several years back, the last meeting was in 2010, we are tired of waiting. We have already been through the first phase and our streets and sidewalks are completely torn up now. After being previously delayed, it was supposed to be completed in December 2014. We did not sign up for completing only one phase. To stop the project would be ludicrous, unfair, and put public safety at risk. The older sewage plant site project will be bringing much more foot traffic to Palmetto. Is the present condition how we want to leave Palmetto? Many property owners have upgraded their infrastructure to accommodate the underground utilities, which is part of the process. Council, we've done our part. Now please do what you and your staff have promised us for several years now and vote to continue funding the project with ERAF funds. Don't delay this work any longer. Please do what's right and best for our neighborhood and the city. Vote yes to complete this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. After Trish is Susan here? Susan Chu?
No, she was here.
Okay. And then Lynn Adams. She looks good.
She left.
Go ahead, Trish. Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor Irvin, City Council members, and City staff. My name is Trish Moran Scholl. My husband and I have been homeowners and residents on Palmetto Avenue for almost 12 years now. I had the honor of serving for a period of time on the West Sharp Park Advisory Committee, whose primary work product was the Palmetto Avenue streetscape. Some other committee members I served with are also here tonight and very likely tuning in. We were a very diverse group of Pacificans with different backgrounds and points of view, but we all shared vested interests, creative ideas, and enthusiasm for laying out a vision for the renovation of our historic street that holds so much potential for our beloved city. We also shared in the countless hours of effort, community outreach, and public input over the years of the committee's work. Since the possibility of redevelopment agency funds disappeared, I am thrilled to see that a tangible funding source for the Palmetto Avenue streetscape now exists. I'm here tonight to encourage our City Council to not allow the Palmetto Avenue streetscape to get brushed aside or further delayed again. I am holding on to my optimism that the immensely important Beach Boulevard project will get the green flag from the California Coastal Commission, but I feel strongly that in the meantime, we need to be very proactive with our streetscape in order to demonstrate to all potential Beach Boulevard project developers that our city is doing all it can to attract visitors and other businesses to this historical district. The streetscape would help make their development a success, in turn helping our city's future a success too. If your only option to secure funding for the Palmetto streetscape tonight is to approve item number 3, then I strongly encourage you to approve item number 3. However, I am concerned that there is no timeline or definite funding commitment in the current wording of item 3. Without more concrete details for funding or deadlines, I worry that throwing the streetscape to another committee is an open-ended invitation to brush the entire project aside again. I sincerely hope my worry about this proves unfounded. I love this neighborhood, and I plan to continue raising my family here and supporting the Palmetto Avenue businesses for many years to come. Please don't let this rare funding opportunity pass us by. I thank you kindly for your time.
Thank you very much. Robin Runiels? Thank you. You've been very patient.
Good evening, Council. Robin Niels, Sharp Park resident for 39 years, a member of the FogFest board, and a member of Westpac with Trish and several other people in the neighborhood. Many things that have been said, I don't want to repeat. I had concerns over the OBAG grant money, the $1 million, and the timeline required to be able to utilize that money and the start of construction. So when I saw the staff report suggesting that this go to a committee, it was actually horrifying to me and many of the neighbors, because it really represented going back to the process that actually Westpac took 3 years. Westpac developed the recommendation for the streetscape program, and it took 3 years to do it. And the filing for that, for the OBAG grant, which Van submitted in 2012, I think it was, is 80 pages. And it encompasses everything from basically the street all the way down to what Councilmember Degree was asking about, which was businesses and facade suggestions and everything down to art and murals for the street. So it's a very, very encompassing program. To take it back to a committee, I think would be, again, what Trish said, without any timelines on it, it's a potential to reopen the whole thing. It's very detailed. One question I really do have is that when we were working on Westpac on this whole plan, one thing that we were told, and Steve Rhodes was the city manager at the time, was that there was $2 million designated for the remodel of this site to a city hall. And when that project went down, when it failed and it didn't pass, it wasn't supported, we were told, and Steve Rhodes took the $2 million and turned around and designated it, dedicated it for the street. And that's what we all understand is the situation. So with that money, it needs to be located. I think that a lot of things are going to be solved if we can find out what happened to that $2 million right here. Okay, it's going to help go a long ways to keep this project going. Please keep the project moving. Keep it moving for the people on Palmetto, the businesses and residents that have made the investment. Please keep, the other side of the deal and get the street work done so that we can keep this project moving forward. Okay, thank you for your time, and please. Please just don't give us any more delays on it. Let's keep it going, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, and I thank everybody for staying as long as you have, and all the comments that you've made. They've been very helpful, and I'm going to bring it back to council for discussion. Any council member want to start off the comments? Mayor Pro Tem Degree?
Yes, there has been a lot of work, and so when I asked if the documents are still available, these are the documents I'm talking about, the very detailed ones. So we still have that.
Mayor Pro Tem Degree, I just want to clarify a question. When you say documents, are you talking about the project plans and specs?
Yes.
Yeah, the project plans and specs are...
and pretty much what Robin was saying right now.
Yeah, they're complete. They're at the... we have a copy of it at the Office of the Engineering Division.
Okay. And so then when, Lori, when you were referring it to Economic Development Committee, I guess my understanding was that we would take all the hard work that was already done, and because of limited staff, that the Economic Development Committee would look at that document and get things going and put proposals like start with phase 1 or make sure everything is up to date, because it has been since 2010. I imagine some things might have, I don't know. But, and I agree that there was money. I think the money was tied up in redevelopment funds, which went away. It seems to me the funding had something to do with the economy going down. But yeah, this is, I've always been in favor of Palmetto. I did attend as many of the meetings as I could because you can only have so many council persons there. So I'm definitely see Palmetto as a very, 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 very important, and I'm very happy to see all the folks, both residents and business people, coming out. That's very encouraging. Very happy to see that.
Any other comments?
So I don't know if you had that in mind when you suggested maybe the economic development.
Right. So what I was envisioning is that, well, one, they are the advisory committee that you've designated to oversee economic development, so it would be good for them to understand what this process, this plan is. I'm not sure that the majority of them perhaps do. I also envision that because there has been change on Palmetto in terms of the businesses and the residents' composition, we'll need to do some education, tell people what is in the plan and what they can expect. And having some meetings with the Economic Development Committee is in line with their mission, and rather than coming back to you. And there's also that design guidelines that I mentioned that still needs attention. And it's something that I've brought up with the Economic Development Committee as well. And it's a document that lays out the city's vision and also gives some design guidelines for the businesses along the street. And from my vantage point, those need to be separated. So there's some work to be done there as well. And I think we would want to take advantage of help from folks who live in the area, and they could work with the Economic Development Committee. So those are my thoughts and why I thought it was a match. And it's activity, it's a sign that we're going to be doing something, and maybe they can come up with some other resources to help us make things happen. The woman from the Sanchez Art Center, for example, offering to help find some money for public art. That's the kind of sort of a collaboration and help that I think we're going to need to make this happen. So that's really why I proposed this and why I was thinking about it.
And then my interpretation of the public meetings wasn't to start all over, but was to touch base with those folks who are already involved and
bring new folks up to speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill?
I have to admit, one of the things in Pacifica likes to do is keep fighting the same fight over and over again. But I think this is something that does need to move forward. I think, given what Van has said, if we approve it tonight to go forward, it's still going to be almost, 9 months to a year before the shovel hits the dirt. And if that's, if that's what's going to happen, we're going to have plenty of time for education. And at that point, I think the Economic Development Committee could work on a specific plan. Like I know Millbrae doesn't allow any more beauty shops or Chinese restaurants on Broadway. So that kind of stuff is something the Economic Development Committee could work on. So I would vote for moving this forward and going ahead.
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Oh, okay. And I do have comments. I just want to say that I'm very much in support, and I always have been, of this Palmetto project. And I believe the city manager is supportive of the project as well. That the one dilemma I think we have is that with these two projects that were presented, or three, with the Resource Center and the trail and Palmetto, we are about $225,000 short. Yes. And I am very supportive of seeing it go forward, because I know that there's going to be coming up the sale of Beach Boulevard, and we'll also have very likely some ERAF funds, looking at ERAF funds next year, where we can bridge the lack of funds. We are also hoping for grant funding. I'm a little concerned about the trail because we have until December of 2015 to get the funding for that. So if we take all the money for Beach Boulevard, for Palmetto, and put it into this project, then we could very likely come up short if we don't end up getting the grant funds for the trail. So there is a little bit of a dilemma. On the other hand, I think there are going to be opportunities that we are going to have in the time frame of Palmetto getting it going. I would absolutely want to earmark it, do whatever we can with the money we have in the next 6 months, or get the design phase going. It's on the books. Make out a timeline, so everybody's very clear on what our next steps are. And I'm also, one of the questions I did have was in terms of FogFest. Just trying to figure out how construction would affect FogFest parade and those kinds of things. But it's something that this neighborhood deserves. It's been decided on before. A great deal of work has already been done, and I think it's time to proceed with that work. So I'm very supportive on seeing it move forward. With the concern, of course, that that part of the funding has to come from Beach Boulevard or next year's ERAF or something like that.
I would like to move that we direct staff to work with the Economic Development Committee to establish a process for updating the Palmetto Streetscape project that could include holding public meetings and refining the project phases to be within the city's funding ability, and to return to council with a proposal to move the project forward.
Could we, are you calling on me?
Yeah.
Instead of leaving it open so that when the Economic Development Committee looks at this, they don't interpret public meetings as going and starting all over, but reconnecting with the residents and businesses that were involved with that aspect of the public. Of course, they're open to public anyway, but kind of focusing in on looking at the documents that we have, reconnecting and educating all the parties involved, by stakeholders, I should say, and maybe have some kind of a timeline so that, because we don't know how the Economic Development Committee is going to interpret this or embrace it or not. I think we should be as very clear as possible, is that we really expect they take the documents that are and they reach the stakeholders and educate folks to what's been planned, and that we move forward and try to have all of that done within a specific amount of time. And I think that might mean subcommittee, so we don't wait around for 1 month after another month. I mean, that would be my suggestion, to tweak this a little bit.
Okay. Councilmember O'Neill, do you have a comment on that? Or I see your lights on.
I was just going to kind of, your concerns about the Colt property, I just wanted to see if the scenario in my head is correct, okay? If whatever, okay, there's the $1 million grant from CCAG, BAG, whoever it's from, okay? A matching fund of 114. So we could use the 114 from this 1.7 million, and then that would still, but we're not going to find out about these grants until July or August, which would give us plenty of time, because you said you wouldn't get the shovel in the dirt till next year. And at that point, we would probably know what the balance of the next year's ERAF is. So I don't think there's any problem with the Colt property, because we would know about that by July or August, and we could very well have. Plus, per the financial report last month, mid-year, if we kept it up, we could actually have somewhat of a surplus this year, which could also go towards the purchase of the Colt property. So I don't think, I'm not really concerned, about that.
About the deadline.
So.
What about that?
The deadline, to purchase the property is by December of 2015.
Right, and we're going to know July or August, and at that point, we could allocate money from this to.
So does anybody have another motion that they'd like to make?
He's made a motion, someone needs to second it.
Right, and so you're content.
I'm not seconding it,
Right.
no. you agree
Does anybody
with it,
have a
Sue?
motion that they would like to, I can't make a motion, so I'm just wondering if anybody else has a motion that
Could
they...
you repeat your motion, please?
It's
You have a question?
written down there. It's number 3.
Oh.
It's exactly as written.
I don't believe there was a second.
There was no second.
So we need a second in order to discuss.
I can read it again if you don't have it there.
I think they're working on trying to,
Just change the wording a little bit.
yeah,
Do you have
adjust.
another question? I did talk to the chairperson of the Economic Development Committee, and he was very gung-ho and very positive about moving forward as rapidly as possible for the Palmetto project. The question came up, is the Economic Development Committee allowed to do fundraising? That was one of the things that we...
question.
That-
Not without the authority of the council.
Yes.
They're an advisory body.
So if they wanted to conduct...
Recommendations to the council
Mhm.
about fundraising.
Can we just add some, if anybody wanted just to
Are you
add?
going to second the motion?
No, oh,
Well, I don't mind seconding the motion. I would, like I said, I would like to clean up the language to make
Like
it...
to make a substitute.
Yes, I guess so. Oh, brother. Okay, there we...
Like to do.
I don't know, do you mind a little bit of change to the motion?
Change away.
So if we say direct staff to work with the Economic Development Committee to establish,
Reach out to stakeholders?
yes, I would like them to, and the document's very important.
Okay.
That they bring forth the documents, study them carefully so we don't miss anything, and check in with the stakeholders and educate the area as to what's being planned, and come forth with fundraising suggestions, if that's whatever suggestions for council, so we can move this rapidly. I don't know if we could possibly finish something by time Fog Fest, but I certainly understand the concern of moving forward and sticking to what has already been achieved, not to bypass, whittle it down, dilute it, stop it, anything like
could we
that.
put anything in there, some language about earmarking funds and moving for the
Oh, as an advisory thing? I don't know, are we going too far, Michelle?
Well, I was going to say, once you're done, we need to sort of figure out what is the motion. So, you know, if you want to put something like that into the motion, we're going to need to rephrase it.
Yes, so do you have something, Lori, or shall I keep stabbing at this?
I'm happy to read some notes that I made. Maybe this will help. Direct staff to work with the Economic Development Committee to bring forth documents, reach out to stakeholders, and reconnect with them to develop fundraising options, and return to council with a proposal to move the project forward.
Well, I'd like, it's the Westpac documents, so we're actually capitalizing on all the work that's been done so far, and the stakeholders that have already expressed themselves clearly. So I'd like to be specific about that.
And I would just add one word at the end, forthwith. To
Forthwith,
indicate-
which means immediately?
To indicate there's some urgency, is what my
Urgency, yes.
I would just like to see some language in there saying we're earmarking the funds from ERAF for this project.
Can we do that somehow?
I would be reluctant to do earmarking because that sounds like it's a definite. I would say something to the effect of reviewing, after we get the determination of the grants, we review the purchase of the Colt property, funds, source of funds.
We're not
on the coal property.
Well, that's what she wants to
No,
earmark.
I'm not.
Oh,
No,
I'm
no.
sorry.
We're on the Palmetto.
I misunderstood you.
No.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not okay with earmarked funds either at this time.
I think, though, I mean, talking to the chair, he's very enthusiastic. I think the only hitch would be that if the committee as a whole had reservations, and we won't know that until tomorrow night, so. But I think that based on the chair He embodied everything I just heard, including let's get out there and fundraise. Let's get events happening on the street or in the area that would highlight the need for moving forward.
My suggestion is, I think that the city manager has read a motion that will suffice, and then if there is further direction after the motion is made and seconded, then you can say to the city manager, and we'd like you to direct the Economic Development Committee to do this, so as opposed to making it all into a motion, because the motion's going to be too long.
Right. We all get the gist.
And do we have any
I'll second.
timeline in there in terms of when we can expect, I mean, I want this to move forward, and we have the money, and I don't understand the delays, and so I'm just trying to figure out.
The attorney used language which means
Forthwith.
hurry up. Forthwith, does that have like?
Yes.
Forthwith means like, in what span of time?
There's no, but.
Means
as
do not
quickly
delay.
as They can, meaning that this is, if this motion gets back to them, this is probably their priority and that the council's waiting.
Do not
for.
delay, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
that clearly indicates that your desire to have this brought back to you quickly.
I'll second. Is that feel acceptable with that? The changes we just made, you okay with that? Oh, okay.
I'm okay with it.
Can you read it one more time?
Happy to. Direct staff to work with the Economic Development Committee to bring forth Westpac documents, reach out and reconnect with stakeholders, and develop fundraising options, and return to the council with a proposal to move the project forward forthwith.
You should probably say Palmetto Streetscape in there somewhere.
Okay.
Yep.
Has it been seconded?
Second.
Can I just make a
Well,
statement?
who made, I thought you made the substitute motion.
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
No,
I was asking
Vice
if
Mayor
he was.
Degree, so
okay.
we need somebody else to second the substitute
okay.
motion.
Right.
I thought we were tweaking.
Do we have a second?
We're still tweaking.
You're not going to second that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Let me
Anybody
hear it.
can second it.
I can't second it.
No, except for you to make it true.
I
Mike,
can't
is there something that you'd like to modify in that, so we can have?
Well, I was just going to make a statement that my no vote for that motion is a no vote against the motion, not moving forward with the streetscape.
And that's what I'm trying, I think it's so important to move forward with the streetscape that it would be beneficial to come up with a motion that we can all work with.
Okay, I'll come.
So,
I'll
I'm sorry,
make a
Madam
mo-
Mayor, it's 11 o'clock, so we're going to need a majority vote of the council to continue past 11.
Okay. Do we have a majority vote of council to?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
Put a fork in it. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I
I'll second.
I make a motion that we direct staff to move forward with building the Palmetto Streetscape and bypass the Economic Development Committee.
Does that give you enough teeth to move forward? I mean,
I'm not sure the funding source. Are you suggesting that you designate the 1.5 million from the excess ERAF money to fund the streetscape project?
I move that the council direct staff to allocate 1.5 million of ERAF funds towards the design and construction and pursuit of other funds for the Palmetto Streetscape at this time.
Thank you.
second.
Okay. Okay, we have a first and a second, so it's time to vote.
I just have a comment.
Sure, sorry.
I'm going to vote against this motion. And the reason is that there are 5 business districts in this city that are more active than Palmetto, our 4 shopping centers and Rockaway. In addition, there's, we've seen the presentation from Lorenzo tonight, and here we are spending money like crazy on something that, whose effect is in my eyes, questionable. And so that's why I'm going to vote against this. It's because the motion contains allocating specific funds.
Okay,
Okay? Okay.
thank you.
And can I ask one question?
Yes.
So by this action, then you're putting the Palmetto project ahead of the Colt property purchase?
Correct.
Right.
I just want to be clear that that's what I'm hearing you all say.
Do you want me to amend the motion?
Well, I would like some kind of language in there saying it, if we could contribute 1.225 to the Palmetto project, so we have the funds necessary to support it, and then when there's funding from Beach Boulevard or there's funding from additional ERAF funds, we could contribute that funding towards Palmetto.
At the balance.
The balance.
Okay, can I ask Van, okay, by August, or let's say August or September of this year, how much of this money do you think will be spent out of that fund we just put the money in? I mean, just a ballpark.
By August of this year?
Yeah.
Like what I said, the availability of the OBAG money is not until January of
Right,
2016.
So virtually the entire 1.7 is going to be in the fund still, almost, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll amend the motion that we direct staff.
We have to vote on
Oh,
the motion
okay.
because it's been seconded.
Okay. I was just going to make a motion that we review
Unless you want to withdraw
July.
the motion.
I don't think I want to withdraw. No.
Well, why don't you withdraw the
Okay,
motion?
I withdraw the motion.
Start clean.
And then I would just amend the motion to state that the council directs staff to move forward with the $1.7 million Palmetto streetscape, and that we reserve that upon regarding the Colt property purchase of the Colt property will be reviewed September of this year once we know.
No, well, what I was trying to say is let's just, at this time, contribute 1.25 million towards the Palmetto project going forward. And as more money comes in with the Beach Boulevard or ERAF funds in January, when we won't have used those funds yet, we can add that to the 1.5 million that we need for phase one.
Okay, that's fine then. I move then that we move forward with the Palmetto streetscape and dedicate the ERF funds there, minus the funds needed to purchase the Colt property.
That's even bigger.
With the
1.2 million of ERF funds.
So what I can do, the balance is actually in the fiscal impact of the report, since you've allocated $86,000 toward Beach Coalition and
Right.
Pacific Resource Center. That leaves you $1,694,027. So I can back out the balance that we think we'll need for the Colt property, the $339.
Right.
And whatever the remainder is, you want to allocate that to Palmetto.
That's
Did I
my
get that
feeling.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vote.
Okay, it's time to vote. Are you clear? Okay.
I am.
Let's take a vote. That passes 3-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. Oh, and with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, God.
And I really want to express my appreciation to everybody in the audience.
Thank you for the discussion, everybody. Thank you.
I know.